This are we starting? Well,
I don't. And good afternoon, 365 Sports on one of the great days in sports, both the first and second raw days of the NCAA tournament. Not the play-in games, those are cool too. But today, March Madness began, and we will get to a game that's going on now that could be a stunner if something doesn't change. Yes, you see Nebraska in a hat. Craig Smoak brought a Nebraska hat too, and that's my golf shirt behind me. So we'll get to that, but great win for TCU. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, what a day. And right now you have Siena by 11 over Duke at halftime.
yeah, this is what March Madness is all about, is this craziness. High Point just upset Wisconsin. So there's your 12-5 upset there. I think we're going to get a couple of 11-6s maybe before this thing is all said and done. I can't wait to talk about Miami, Ohio later. But Duke, Siena made no substitutions in the first half, and none of those guys have more than one foul. So Duke has not been very aggressive. I expect John Shire to change that in the second half. But down by 11 already, Nebraska just absolutely rolled today, and TCU held off Ohio State. They had times where they had bigger leads, and it went back and forth a little bit, but super gutsy performance by Jamie Dixon's crew today as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to see this all get launched and started up, and yeah, I think it's been a kind of a fun beginning to things, and already seeing a couple of the upsets, like you said, and Duke. I mean, we'll see what happens here. I mean, it's 11 points. It's not insurmountable. There's still a full half to play, but it's at least got people feeling like there's the potential for an absolutely 10.0 on the Richter scale level of an upset. We've seen a 16 beat a 1, but for Duke to get knocked off by Siena would be just an all-timer moment in college basketball. A lot of basketball left to play still, but yeah, some interesting results early on, and a heck of a way to start off this March Madness.
Great win for the Big 12 to start, because Ohio State was an 8 seed, TCU the 9th seed. There's games going on. Nebraska, their first win ever in the NCAA tournament, and they are the 245th men's basketball program to get their first win. They blow out Troy 76-47. Vanderbilt is next if they could beat McNeese State. That'll be a dicey game. Nebraska shot the ball well. Troy did not. Bottom line, the Huskers finally get an NCAA tournament win.
Vanderbilt, by the way, under a minute to go now in the first half, up by 5, 38-33 on McNeese State. But Nebraska, we actually saw them in the NCAA tournament one year against Baylor, and Baylor drilled them. I mean, absolutely.
San Antonio.
Absolutely drilled them down in San Antonio. And that might have been the last time they went, honestly. They might have snuck in another time, but it's been a long time since they've been there. And it's one of those things that's kind of crazy. You would think in all the years of the NCAA tournament, an athletic department as deep as Nebraska's would have found a win in the NCAA tournament, just one. But they've also never been, I don't know if they've ever been this high of a seed before, Smokey, as a 4.
They
They're usually live in that, like,
conference tournament, but this is their
they
best
usually
team.
They usually live in that 8, 9, 10 kind of a region for seeding. So when they have been in, so yeah, it was a big win. They're going to have a tough test, whether it's Vanderbilt or McNeese on Saturday. But yeah, McNeese already, in the time that I gave the score, scored 5 points, so they can score fast. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Fred Hoiberg can do. It looks like he's kind of installed his culture there. They look very much like those Iowa State teams that he had, and that's really good news, because he
shoot it. And
turned
if they're shooting it.
Yeah, he turned that job into an NBA job. So
Absolutely, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, Sanfort's a heck of a player for the Huskers, but yeah, they're just a really good overall team. He had a nice day, and it was a pretty easy breezy win when all was said and done. So I saw I think ESPN, one of the various ESPN accounts said that with that now checked off, Boise State now stands with the most losses without a win in NCAA tournament history. Boise State is 0-10, and so they're now on the clock to be, I guess, the next team that's painfully without a tournament win. So Jeremiah Dickey, friend of the show, get on that with your basketball program.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's really cool to see history being made, however it's being made, and for a program like Nebraska, who's had a team here and there that's been pretty okay or even pretty good. Didn't think I fully realized they had never won a tournament game until that obviously started making their rounds as much as it did with what they did. So, yeah, very cool moment for the program, and Fred Hoiberg's a hell of a coach, and I think they're a team that people don't look at as like some like sort of a special case of like, oh, good for you, Nebraska, let's pat you on the head. It's a team that people think can go make a run. So not a national championship necessarily, but a couple rounds, maybe more into the tournament. They're already one step towards that. So, yeah, we'll see. But that's a definite wild card. You weren't necessarily banking on this season when it all started up.
TCU beats Ohio State. Nebraska beats Troy. Louisville closes out and wins against USF by 4, 83-79. And High Point with the win, as you mentioned, Paul, against Wisconsin, 83-82. McNeese State, Vandy going on. Siena Duke going on. And some other games going on. One note before we get to a couple of things about Miami of Ohio and our guests and all that today. This is from Connor O'Gara. Paul, you know him very well. The year is 2026. Nebraska basketball won an NCAA tournament game. Indiana basketball missed the tournament for the third consecutive year. Nebraska football hasn't beaten an AP top 25 team in a decade. And Indiana football went 16-0 and won the national championship. Things have flipped on their head.
They absolutely have. By the way, interesting comments from Flynn Clayman, the head coach at High Point. Something needs to be done about these non-conference schedules. He said High Point couldn't get games. Miami, Ohio couldn't get games. Belmont couldn't get games. So, for all the people that say like, well, they wanted more money, they wasn't this, or, well, first of all, those fund their athletic department, so they're crazy not to ask for more money if they can get it. And two, the reason that they also don't schedule them is I do think that they're afraid of losing to them. It's like a little bit of a football thing. I think basketball coaches usually aren't scared about that because it's one game in a midst of 35 or 36 games, and you can really rally back from it, unlike football. But High Point, Miami, Ohio, really making statements about, hey, nobody wants to play us, and it's not that we don't try. So, and he said after the game that, like, all right, they won't play us in the regular season, but we're going to play their ass off in the tournament. So,
if you get the chance, by the way, Mike Latulip, who is a basketball analyst for the Field of 68, also covers Illinois, among others, is going to join us today around 4:15 or so to discuss his argument for Miami of Ohio, even before they won last night, and a couple of things that kind of stood out to me. All right, Craig, Miami of Ohio, in fact, they did win last night. The Redhawks, first team since the 1979 Indiana State Larry Bird team that lost to Magic and Michigan State in the championship, to begin the regular season unranked in the AP poll, and then finish the regular season unbeaten, and then win an NCAA tournament game. Now, we're not comparing them to Indiana State with Larry Bird. They were phenomenal until they met Michigan State, but that's a note about Miami and the Redhawks win last night to open up the tournament in the play-in game. Also, there was a little go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I just think all the hand-wringing over them just looks even sillier than it already did. But
yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that was also brought up as this game was finishing, remember when Keith Gill, the commissioner, the Sun Belt, and he was the chairman of the men's basketball committee, Keith Gill was asked about SMU making the tournament because they had slid at the end, and he had mentioned that they were bolstered and got in because B.J. Edwards, the best player for SMU, was cleared and was going to play. In fact, Pete Thamel mentioned that too, and then all of a sudden last night, he doesn't play. Andy Enfield, the SMU coach, saying he just didn't feel like he was quite game ready. And you wonder if SMU may have maybe wasn't completely true or honest about his availability, and should that have made the decision for the NCAA tournament to put him in anyway?
It wouldn't be the first time that coaches have been less than truthful about injuries. And given that situation, I'm not surprised that they would, but that's something that's going to be looked at. And if you were SMU and you were a bubble team, I can't accuse Andy Enfield of that, but not having their best player was a big deal. And they were in that game because, in part, they thought that the best player was going to be available to play, at least in that one.
Yep.
And he wasn't.
Well, we've seen teams in sports be taken out because of injuries. Nothing more obvious than Florida State and Jordan Travis, but that was one where he was expected to play. But what a great win for Miami of Ohio, and SMU gets one and done. Oklahoma was probably next team in too, Craig, with SMU getting in instead of them.
They didn't earn it. So, I mean, yeah, you can look at SMU and say that maybe they didn't either, but regardless, SMU got in. So I don't really care about the what ifs, but I'm sure Oklahoma is feeling a little bit of a sting and feeling like they could have probably put up a better effort than SMU did, although that was a close ball game. And the whole injury thing, I mean, coaches lie. Coaches lie all the time, and they do so to get the best advantage or situation that they can. So if Andy Enfield needed to tell a little lie to get his team into the NCAA tournament, do you think he still thinks it was worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course he does, because they made the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, they got what they wanted, and, yeah, it was nefarious maybe or not entirely truthful, but that's not Andy Enfield's problem. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem of the committee for buying that or whatever it was that went into their decision-making. So, yeah, quick exit for SMU, but – so I was attempting to say a few minutes ago, like it's just really funny to see all of that discourse for the entire week about Miami of Ohio and whether this team that's lost one single game deserves to be in, and acting as though they were like Ohio State scheduling powder puffs to go 14-0 or something. And I don't know, man. This is where I'm just like, I think I'm just reading too many bots or something, because I'm just like, how are people this up in arms? There's no possible way. Like, I'm reading this, and I'm this far off from where everybody else is, in that I think this is the dumbest argument possible, and I think this is just a silly conversation to have. Now, if they were to do that 2 and 3 years in a row, like, I think, like, for example, like Texas Tech, okay, football, they, not by their own choosing, but they have had a couple years now where they're starting to hit their peak, where their non-con's not that impressive, and part of that's like, hey, a team got left out of realignment, so they're in the Pac-12 and they're trying to rebuild, and that's not what you planned when you scheduled it. Yeah. But we could go back to when Art Briles was head coach at Baylor, and he and Ian McCaw were absolutely rigging up the schedule to say all we're trying to do is get bowl eligible. And the problem was then they kept doing it while they got really, really good. And I wonder with Tech, like, I think they've got like some big teams on the way, but if they were to keep playing like that, eventually you're going to hear the argument you heard with Baylor of like, well, you're not playing anybody. It's not as impressive when you go 14-0 or whatever the case may be. If Miami of Ohio is doing that year after year after year, it's all pansies in the non-conference, and they're running through their conference and they're head and shoulders above or whatever, then I think you make a case for it. But that's not what's going on here. It's not like this has been like year after year after year. This was just a team that happened to win all of its close games until it didn't win the last game, and won 32 games in a row to get to where they were. So good on Miami of Ohio is my point of, I would understand if it was like a nagging thing, but it's not. It's a rare thing in this year. And, they can't go and not play anybody, so to speak, moving forward. But other teams have to be willing to play them. Yeah. That's not solely on them. I think that was also the case with Baylor. I think that was also probably the case with some teams don't want to play Texas Tech right now. So there is a little bit of a give and take. But 32-1 is 32-1, and I'm glad that they went and handled their business and left no doubts for the detractors out there.
I can make all the calls I want. You got to pick up the phone.
Of course.
I mean, that's the other thing.
I'll never forget. I had a interview with the late Sean Adams, who was down in Austin doing radio. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know who told him or what he got information-wise, that he had me on his show because Texas fans were bitching about Baylor not playing anybody in the non-conference. And I had to go on there, and I think he was expecting me to say something different. But I guess he was thinking I was going to go on there and be like, no, see, this is why you don't have to play anybody. And I went on there and I told him, I was like, well, they've tried to schedule teams. Teams don't want to play them. And then once he realized that, he had like no questions left. It's like it ruined his entire segment. So the point is, teams got to be willing to play you. And clearly, Miami of Ohio and others are saying, hey, we would schedule tougher, but not everybody wants to play us.
Now, do I believe that Ian McCaw would make one call and not get the call back that he wanted and then use that as so that it could? Because I don't think he was pushing as hard for it. But I do think they were. I mean, they were calling people, and people were like, well, I don't know. Especially during that era, there was such a frantic, almost like pandemic-like nervousness among other coaches about that offense that they were running, where they were like, oh, it's dangerous. People are going to get killed in this offense. You know, Nick Saban was one of them, as a matter of fact. By the way, Smokey, you mentioned Jordan Travis getting hurt. I don't think for 1 second if Florida State could have made people think that he was going to play, and even if he didn't, that they would have. But considering he had a career-ending injury that you saw in the air where his foot went in like two different complete wrong directions. I think that was all over but the shouting when that happened. So
they couldn't have gotten through that. Here's an interesting note. 2 of the HBCUs, HBCUs have made the field of 64 before, but 2 of them winning in the play-in games. One, Howard beating University of Maryland, Baltimore County on Tuesday, and last night, Prairie View with a win against Lehigh 67-55, making the tournament. And the money that these teams are about to make is going to be phenomenal as they get the units. And now they may get knocked out immediately in tonight and tomorrow, but they are going to make some cash because of the play-in games, which remained yesterday. Good for them to get in and win in the play-in games.
Yeah, they're both fun teams to watch, and in this 16 versus 1 era where it is realistic, there are 2 teams that I don't want to play, even though I obviously the odds are stacked against them because they both play with ridiculous energy. Prairie View A&M's defense, like, they are not worried about fouls, Smokey. It's a great thing to watch. They are not worried about the officials calling fouls. They are so confident in their defense. They're so confident that, okay, all right, this team might make these free throws, but the next possession down the court, they're going to chuck up a bad shot because we're going to be in their face. And that was really, really fun to watch last night, the way that they defended that game. And it's awesome for both of them. I believe Denzel Washington is a Howard graduate.
Fordham.
I
might be thinking about President.
No, he's a Fordham graduate. Yeah. Well, that's like the one piece of pop culture you'd ever get over Paul. One single thing.
The reason I know that,
okay,
on the way back from Dallas, I listened to a podcast with him, and he was speaking to the class at Fordham.
You know what it was? Felicia Rashad was teaching at Howard, teaching acting, and she got him to come and speak with them, and he's donated money. And Ryan Coogler, who just won an Oscar the other night, was at Howard. So was Chadwick Boseman at Howard.
But Denzel was where?
Denzel was at Fordham.
Yeah,
but Denzel.
It's the only one I would get that right. Yeah. You're right. No question about it. Miami of Ohio can shove Ken Palm. And listen, that's a great sight in what they do. Scored 80 points, 20-plus assists, 15 threes they've made plus, and fewer than 5 turnovers. No one has ever done that in the history of the NCAA tournament in any single game, and that's the kind of how flawless they were in that win last night to win in the opening round.
There was a point during that game where I saw the tweets that were coming out, like Andy Enfield might have lied about, his guy being there and all that. And I thought, like, maybe at that moment when it started to get so loud and so rowdy, he was like, maybe I should have told the truth about that. Yeah, this may not be worth it. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I'm kidding there, but like it was rowdy. There was a home game for them, so it was just. I mean, that crowd was great. They played with such high energy. Suter's a heck of a player too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think he still would do all over again what he did rather than go play in the NIT or something along those lines. But, I think, it's fair to wonder how truthful he was, and it's also fair to assume that he probably did what was best for his team, and the overall big picture was, how do we get into the NCAA tournament? I got to tell a little bit of a fib.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do that, and you know what? Their exit was quick, so maybe there was a little bit of karma in that, and that they didn't stay around for very long. And I think the Miami, Ohio thing, again, is a great story. I hated that people were kind of trying to take away from that the last couple of weeks. And I know what the reaction would have been like had they lost that game. It would have been, see, told you so. Fake 32-1, fake-ass record, that kind of jazz. But instead, they get the big win, and that's awesome. That's awesome for them. That's awesome for the mid-majors, the smaller universities out there. And I think it's you mentioned the Prairie View A&M win as well as what Howard. And that's great for the HBCUs. I mean, all the small schools, wherever your background is, I don't care. This is your time of year as much as it is the big boys' time of year, at least at this stage. And don't know how many have more Cinderella fairy dust awaiting them as far as the next couple of rounds go. But so far, this March Madness has had a little bit of madness to it, and it's only day one, really, although the play-in games have been what they've been as well. But really the first full official day, and, yeah, Duke's on the ropes, and Wisconsin's going down, and HBCUs are advancing, and Miami of Ohio's winning more games, and it's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
All right, one note about the Siena game with Duke right now. Never before, we know that University of Maryland, Baltimore County, a 16 seed, beat Virginia in 2018. Never before has a 16 seed has the number one seed trailed at halftime in a tournament game. Again, University of Maryland, Baltimore County won that game against Virginia, but no number one seed has trailed a 16 seed at halftime.
That's interesting. I'm not holding my breath that they're going to pull it off in the second half, but it's at least made things much more interesting than Duke had gone on there and slapped them around and beat them by 30 or something along those lines. Like, I'm sure some out there probably assumed that they would, being a 1 versus a 16. Instead, it's at least a tight battle at half, and they're now back underway, and Siena's still got a 9-point lead. So a long, long way to go, but we will be here for the remainder of it, and you can bet that we'll have a pretty massive reaction if Siena's somehow able to hold on to this thing. But easier said than done.
They've got it going right now, but I got a feeling what's going to happen is that Duke will start to get to the free throw line and start to shorten the game a little bit that way. And then they're also really good and might just get hot along the way in the second half. But I wonder, trails by 3 at halftime to Vanderbilt.
I wonder if there's people out there like the fantasy football folks where you care more about whatever money you're going to make from your bracket being as good as it possibly can, or your fantasy team versus like wanting to see Duke get knocked off by a 16 seed. I would hope that as a sports fan that would trump whatever perfect bracket you think that you have, but I'm sure there's some out there that like they don't care about any of it other than their own, and so they want Duke to pull this one out so that they can have their national champion at the end in their pool or whatever. But screw my bracket, I'll light that son of a on fire on this stage if Siena beats Duke. Like, I don't care one iota about a perfect bracket.
I don't either. And the thing is, the perfect brackets only happen like a few amount of times, and everybody who's ever gotten one is someone who like just uses a computer.
2,500 brackets.
They fill out every different permutation of it and enter it into a free contest so they can get that.
That's how people won the lottery recently.
Yeah.
Bought millions in tickets and just did every combo imaginable, and they hit on one and made money.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, by the way, Smokey, right as you or Craig were saying something, Duke did hit a 3. They're now down by 6. I've got the game up here, but the fouling is starting to happen a little bit.
You need a little bit. Yeah, you can keep us up with that game.
Yeah, I'll keep us up.
I think in the end it might be a Duke 15-point win, but at the same time, it was fun to see that score at halftime.
Duke in the ACC in basketball is a lot like some other of like the big schools in football and like the SEC or Big 12, where like there's that conference. Like, I'm sure everybody's like, well, really hope that Duke doesn't lose this game, but there's especially the teams that were around a long time in the ACC and not the Johnny-come-latelys are all like, oh no, they can go ahead and lose. We don't care. We're fine with it.
The Big 12 with a nice chunk of teams. TCU against a higher seed in Ohio State had a nice lead early, I think up 11 or 12, and then all of a sudden that thing was scratch and claw. at the very end. And Craig, TCU, Jamie Dixon and the Frogs with a nice way to start it off for the Big 12 with a win against the Ohio State University.
Yeah, this was only an 8-9, so I'm sure there was plenty of people that probably picked this game. I did. I picked TCU. Did you guys pick TCU?
I picked TCU.
Yeah, I picked TCU here. That was
I did.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So we all picked TCU to win this game. So this didn't come as much of a surprise. But yeah, there was some high drama. Ohio State closing that big lead that TCU had at halftime, and so it got very, very dicey. But the Frogs able to hold on. I think that's a big first step if you want to look at it from the big picture conference perspective for the league, because I think there's some automatics that you feel pretty good about. But that TCU Ohio State game's very much a coin flip, and so that's a great win for the Frogs to take out the Buckeyes and move on. But yeah, big games from Edmonds and Punch and Robinson. As far as your starters go, all of them nearing 20 points. David Punch, 16 points, 13 boards, couple of assists, 3 blocks. He had a couple of offensive rebounds. So a big night for him against Ohio State. But that's a really nice start for Brett Yormark and his team, and a lot still to play out. And I got high hopes for the league to have several deep runs in this tournament. Not necessarily expecting TCU to be that, but this is a nice first step in just moving on to the round of 32. And they were probably in their locker room eagerly watching this Duke-Siena game because they get the winner of that next. So if Siena were to somehow pull off the upset, then you're talking Sweet 16, maybe TCU having much, much higher odds. Now, they're probably playing Duke. They're probably going to play Duke. But nevertheless, that's big for Jamie Dixon and company to get a tournament win and to do so in what was a close pairing.
At TCU, both teams hit 24 shots, about the same percentage from the field, but TCU hit 3 more threes, and that was the difference in the game. Everything else almost identical as far as across the board with stats.
I have to confess, I thought I picked TCU. I did not. I picked Ohio State. In that game, I fully intended to pick TCU, but I guess I clicked on the
Somebody
Ohio
go in
State.
there and switch your pick.
I mean, Garrett could, because again, he's on
evil.
my login,
Yeah,
so I don't know. He's the other bracket that I have there. I also picked Wisconsin to win, and so I am in like 11 millionth place right now.
I'll tell you this: I've done this for how many years? Used to where you faxed it in, you printed it out of the newspaper. I have been out by the early second part of the first day before. Like
as long as 3 of my final 4 teams are in, I'm confident in finishing at a place where I don't have to read so many. You know, I'm like, you're smarter than me at the end of this thing. But yeah, I'm
Well,
really
I mean,
mad at myself about
it
that
looked
TCU
like it
thing.
was going to be a toss-up. I mean, Xavier Edmonds had the big layup there. He's a great story, and very cool March Madness moment early on to get the bucket that puts you over the top to win that first-round game. So he's the early, I guess, one of the names in this tourney as far as the big play at the end of a game that advances your team. Not quite the three-pointer time running out buzzer going off, but a critical play. And look, they had to really hang on in this one. I mean, it was very, very dicey. They were up by 15 at halftime, and I think you felt great about it. And then Ohio State had that monster second half. But yeah, Edmonds there at the end with the layup, and they're moving on to probably face Duke, who's now down by 2.
They've won. They scored 11 in a row.
Yeah.
They scored 11 nothing run. The Dukies, the Blue Devils, the number 1 overall seed.
That
in the
was
tournament.
that was a really fun game. I mean, that was a great back and forth game that early on looked like it was going to be a blowout, and went down to the wire, and just 2 big time programs. So that was a lot of fun. I'm hoping the Siena Duke game can remain fun, but I think we're going to get out to like the 12-minute mark, and this is going to turn into a blowout going the other direction. But like I've said a couple times now, whether it's Prairie View A&M, which is a great story, or who are we? The Howard, and also now TCU. High Point.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a lot of fun results already. This is what you sign up for. And what was the other game you mentioned that was an upset that you didn't pick, Paul? Because I know people don't want to hear just our brackets.
High Point beat Wisconsin. Yeah.
Did I pick? I don't think I picked. I think I picked Wisconsin. Yeah, I definitely picked Wisconsin.
Here's one note. Remember, this is kind of a funny note. Then we're going to get to our picks, our final 4 picks for Craig, Paul, and me. So remember the story about the game between, Texas and NC State with Barkley Dickie V, and Ryan Anderson. Brian Anderson. Last night, you can't even make this up. I hate it. Brian Anderson's sick. Jason Benetti, who's one of the best, Tarico's one of the best of all time right now, but also Jason Benetti is going to take over that broadcast with Barkley and Vital because Anderson is not feeling well, and he will have the game in the tournament for, what is it, CBS, I guess it is, or TNT. The reactions to this note from Andrew Marchand, who does a great job with broadcasting notes and sports media, was Brian Anderson was not sick. He called in sick because he could not fathom going through another broadcast with two guys that are talking about everything else but the game. He's actually sick, but that is the timing of it is almost not hilarious because he's sick, but hilarious because of the reaction on Tuesday.
I mean, I think two things can probably be somewhat true. I think Brian Anderson wouldn't fake sick to miss an NCAA tournament game because that's an assignment that you work your whole career to get. And certainly, even if it's not your cup of tea, to sit beside Sir Charles Barkley and Dick Vitale is a hell of a thing to be a part of. Now, I can also see where Brian Anderson went to his hotel room afterwards. It was like, oh, my God, that was just
got a migraine headache.
There was a lot of split opinions on that the other night. I was a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I don't ride the middle on everything, but on that particular broadcast, I was at times very much annoyed by the complete lack of focus. And then also, I guess, maybe not enjoying, but at least understanding of how people were entertained by the just riffing that was going on between these two basketball legends. I prefer more of a concentration on the game itself to squeeze the nuggets out of their heads rather than the random of like, yeah, I went to the doctor the other day or whatever the hell they were talking about at various times. But, yeah, that is funny timing, and I'm sure Brian Anderson's going to have to do a lot of denying about, no, I like those guys, but it is funny given how much polarization there was of that broadcast.
We're going to give you our Final Four teams. Not much difference. And then we'll break and come back with more notes when it comes to the Big Ten as a proposal about having a separate type cap for trying to retain players. And, oh, by the way, speaking of that, we had Baylor's Dave Aranda in studio earlier today. We'll have that interview near the end of the 4 o'clock hour, and we discussed that with him as far as NIL and what Baylor's doing and what kind of offseason that they've had. But the Big Ten, let's go our Final Four picks, and then we'll come back with the Big Ten story after that. Rez, if you wouldn't mind putting them up. There's Craig at the top. Everyone has Duke, great. Everybody has Houston. Everybody has Arizona. Craig goes with the Cyclones, stormy Cyclones, going to be excited. And we have Paul, Michigan, as our fourth Final Four team. Not but one difference among the three of us.
No, and I just couldn't put three. I wasn't bold enough to put three Big 12 teams in, and Iowa State was my odd team out because I think so highly of Houston and Arizona. I'm thinking a little less of Duke right now, but I still think that they'll get it going. But I mean, look, you could put four Big 12 teams in this final, and that league has been so good at the top. I would buy it. And once they start playing some of these other teams that maybe not as good and as deep as they are, but it's tough. You got to win 6 games that are to get to the Final Four. You got to win 4 games, and so that's really tough to do at any point in the year. Not to mention then, but Craig, congrats on your boldness, man. Iowa State is also a bad matchup for Michigan because if they get going. If they even play Michigan, but say it goes chalk and it goes down to 1-2, they can bomb points from all over the court on you. And if Michigan's cold, then they're going to have a problem.
I thought about going super homer, even though that's not what I typically do, and just going, all right, Kansas is also in the Final Four and having the entire Big 12, but I could not go with Kansas or TCU, which would have been the missing piece there as far as having the whole thing. Kansas. Just a little bit too shaky for me, having to get through probably, first your first round game, but then St. John's, and then eventually Duke, and I wasn't ready to go there with them. And TCU's obviously not going to the Final Four.
Well, so I mean, TCU and Kansas would both have the same path essentially, which is once they would get to next week, it would be Duke, and then UConn and Michigan State and everybody else that's in that in the in the murderer's row of who's who of college basketball history in that East Division. I mean, Louisville's in that side of it too. So you've got all these big name programs that are in the top 6 seeds in that side of it. So yeah, that was with me too, because there's the now new homer part of me that thinks that I think Kansas can, but they've got to be perfect throughout the thing, and they just haven't done that for a few weeks since they won that 9 games in a row in the middle of the year.
There's also UCF that was there for the taking if I wanted to go super duper homer, but yeah, I think Kansas is capable of doing that. I just have them losing to St. John's in the second round, so I didn't go that far with them. But if I wanted to, I could have talked myself into it. And really, that Iowa State pick, I initially picked Michigan, but I realized I think everybody in America has the same Final Four picks.
Yeah.
It's like the top 4 seeds.
Probably a big
and
chunk, yeah.
If you don't have the top 4, I would really be intrigued by who has like the number 1 or number 2 seeds taking up the entire Final Four. What 3 and lower is the trendy pick? I haven't delved that far. But I think I do what probably everybody else does. You initially just pick, and then you go like, wow, I picked all of the higher seeds. Or the only upsets I picked are like 8 and 9 games. So it's probably not the best formula. Iowa State, they do have one stat that really bothers me. It's that they're not great on the road. They are excellent at home. They are not great on the road. They're like a 500 team-ish on the road, which pales versus a lot of the other top teams. And, well, what are you doing in this tournament? You're playing all your games on the road. So that made me a little bit gun-shy, but I honestly, I'm a believer in Iowa State, but I also just didn't want to have the same picks as everybody. Yeah. And so that's a stupid way to win something, but it's a little bit of column A, column B. I believe in Iowa State. I also didn't want to just have the same 4 as everybody, so I thought, well, where can I change it up? Hey, let's go Cyclones.
They are really good, and it just all depends. If you don't have an off night, you survive if you do, and keep on moving on. When we come back, the Big Ten Conference is discussing an opportunity to have a cap for retaining players on your roster, not just the ones who are incoming or high school players or whatever. We'll come back with that idea, a new provision allowing schools to exceed the revenue sharing cap in order to retain players. And, of course, if you have a bunch of money outside of the house settlement money, then this puts you in a pretty good place.
Wow, this sounds like a really good idea for a conference that has a whole lot of money.
Yep, exactly. That is making more money than anybody else in America. So we'll have that. We'll also look ahead again at 4:15 or so. We got an analyst who will kind of give us an idea of his first few thoughts of this opening day of the tournament. Mike Latulip from the Field of 68. Dave Aranda after that. In between that, Craig and Off the Radar. Then the wheel, the quizzes, the poll, and Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. QC Kinetics. Aches and pains in your joints like I've had or no longer have that I really kind of suffered through for about 3 or 4 years. It just never got better in my hip. Had injections in my back, steroid injections. QC Kinetics provides non-surgical regenerative medicine treatments using your body's own natural biologics and healing power and putting it back in your system. So you go get your blood drawn. They spin plasma, platelets, eventually stem cells, and more, and they put it back in where your pain is or what is creating the pain. Joint pain, knee, hip, and shoulders, torn ligaments and cartilage recovery, hips, shoulders, ankles, everything you could imagine. Carpal tunnel syndrome is an issue too. Reduce the pain, increase your mobility, support long-term recovery. This is not some fly-by-night thing. This will not kick the can down the road. It will get rid of the can so you can kick it and enjoy the rest of your life. It's worked for me since my first treatment in September. I actually have one treatment left because I haven't needed that, and I hope I never have to use it. Consultation's free. QC Kinetics, the number's below. Dallas, 972-972-8610. Houston, 713-913-5285. I am much more active. I don't have the pain. I don't have the pain after I'm active at QCkinetics.com. We are back, 365 Sports in studio on one of the great days in sports, the first day of the NCAA tournament. And that's always a topic of what is the best day in sports, and this is one of them. Hope you've had a great day. Please hit the like button if you have not already, and subscribe if you have not. And if you have, spread the word about what we do. So the Big Ten is pushing for a new provision that allows schools to exceed the revenue sharing cap in order to retain players. Multiple sources, direct knowledge, conversations with Sports Business Journal, the Big Ten ADs, and Commissioner Tony Petitti, promoting a carve-out to let schools who have opted into the House settlement spend beyond the stipulated revenue sharing cap to maintain their rosters, and of course that number is about $20.5 million, which is the overall revenue cap. Shocking.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. I mean, I understand the framework of it. I mean, part of this also gets worked out if you ever collectively bargain, but we know how far off that is. But saying you can go over the cap to retain your players, I mean, when you think about retaining players and you're in the Big Ten and you're in the Power Four conferences, then I don't think that is going to make all that big of a difference. Because if you are still Ohio State and you're going to get somebody who plays at, say, we'll just say Miami, Ohio has one heck of a linebacker and you're going to go take him, well, they might try to spend over their cap too to get him, but you can spend way more over yours. So I don't or not spend way more over yours. You're already keeping a lot of your guys. You're not worried so much about so many of them going to – if you lose a guy to Alabama, you can get a guy from Alabama. It's almost like a trade. So I don't know. I don't think it would change much of what's going on now.
Who gets the most money in college sports? In
Big
football?
Ten, yeah.
So this does not hurt anybody within the Big Ten Conference. Now, again, it's some teams in the Big 12 that could handle this, teams in the ACC who could handle this, but it is another way of already the separation of money that these schools, Big Ten and Big SEC, make. And then, Craig, on top of that, oh, by the way, we can go past the cap.
I think in college sports, everybody's always trying to do what they can to get whatever advantage they can, and the Big Ten already has several advantages, but to get this put through, which is easier said than done, would give them, yes, greater room to work with the money they have. This is the equivalent of NBA bird rights. Do you guys know what bird rights are?
Yeah, well, you can keep
All
a
right.
player.
Yep. Basically, the salary cap doesn't count re-signing your own players. Mm-hmm. So you can go over the salary cap if you're trying to re-sign a guy who's already on your team. That's like the flexibility that it allows you. And so I guess the idea is that it would quiet the transfers a little bit because now you have more money to spend on guys to stay where they are as opposed to leaving. And that's a valid reason for why this would make some sense, especially if you're a Big Ten school. Now, it wouldn't be something the Big Ten can go and just do by themselves. They would have to get the approval along with everybody else, primarily the SEC, because that's just kind of how things work now. But also the Big 12 or the ACC would have to want to go along with this too. And I don't know where their minds are on this. But, yeah, effectively you would be able to go past the salary cap and spend more money to sign your own guys and then have all that money that you were going to spend on other guys to spend on those other guys. So to have your cake and eat it too, basically. And, yeah, it makes a lot of sense if you're a Big Ten school. It makes a ton of sense. And if you're another school in another league, I guess it depends on how much money you have, whether you think this is a good idea or not. I bet Texas Tech probably thinks it's a great idea. I bet who's a lower level NIL team, like I don't know if you're UCF, and I don't even know if they are or not in the big picture, like where they would rank. So that's why I'm kind of
Georgia Tech, maybe.
Or if you're like Georgia Tech or something, then I don't know that you think this is a great idea. This all goes back to: do you think the field of play should be level, even though it's never been level before? There's a lot of people that want to make it as level as possible. A lot of these rules being put in place to try to keep it as level as possible. Some of them have been very effective. Hence, Indiana winning a national championship in football. But it's also not ever going to be completely equal, and I don't think it should be, because then I think then we're talking about like socialist sports, and I don't think any of us want that. If you eat what you kill, I'm more so that than I am everybody deserves the same amount for merely breathing air. Like I don't agree with that. So this is it's an interesting proposal. It would definitely benefit schools who have more money, and it would be a not so good thing for schools that don't have as much money and are hoping that all these other things that have taken place are actually decreasing the gap between them, because I feel like this just widens it right back to where it was at minimum, and that's not good news. So really it just depends on what side of the aisle you sit on. I don't think it's like the Big Ten versus the world or anything along those lines. I don't know how the SEC feels. I would imagine they'd probably be A-okay with this because they too want to spend as much money as possible on their rosters. And this will just make things a little bit clearer as far as what's going on in your player retention and in your player signings, as opposed to maybe some of the shadier money that's still flowing out there that they are still kind of maneuvering through the back rooms. It would just be like, all right, now we just are clearly going to spend this over our salary cap.
You know, I think that it's a fair – the bird rights is a very fair comparison. But the other part of that is, for bird rights and all that, there's also aprons to the salary cap, right, which I think is a really weird way to describe that. But there's aprons to the salary cap in Major League Baseball. They have the luxury tax. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, spend it. Like, the Dodgers don't care about paying the luxury tax. They're just going to spend all they want. Now, they've deferred a bunch of money, so their luxury tax is going to be spread out over maybe a longer time than some teams that have spent the same kind of money. But they're fine paying the luxury tax. They're fine paying that the Brewers aren't going to spend as much, and they're going to get $10 million from the Yankees out of that pot, or whatever, however many millions people get out of it. But college athletics won't have that. The Big Ten and the SEC aren't going to agree to a luxury tax to help it back. So that's the only thing I would have a problem with totally, because it will allow the big spenders to just be big spenders on their own players and spend over the cap. To what limit, we don't know. And because you still have to have limits, because then you could have a team that just goes, well, if there's no limits re-signing our own players, we'll just make sure they never want to leave for any reason.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole – I think that's the point of it.
Well, no, that's the whole point, is retention. Yeah. The whole point is to have your cake and to eat it too. The whole point is to not have a salary cap, to be able to have a salary cap, but one that you just go over because you are allowed this free pass to say, oh, well, this doesn't count against the salary cap because you're signing your players. So your salary cap for your free agents is still what it is. Doesn't mean Ohio State's not going to go get the Michigan linebacker and the Texas wide receiver and whoever. It's just that they don't have to touch that other pile of money to then pay their own linebacker and wide receiver to also stick around. So, yeah, having your cake and eating it too, and there is something about this in the comparison to bird rights that's not very clear right now. And the bird rights are intended to, yes, allow you to re-sign your own players. So in that way, if you're somebody who wants players to stay at one school and you want a little bit less transfer portal activity, then this would be a step towards that. At the same time, there's also provisions as far as the bird rights go. Like, if you stay around, you have to stay around for like 3 years. So would that be a part of this? That you, like, there's, I don't know how to describe it because I'm not like some NBA contractual expert, but like there's the degree of money kicks in based on like if you're there a couple years, or the full amount if you're there like 3 years.
And you've got to waive your bird rights to get traded.
Right, things like that. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's not explainable right now. That would be interesting to see how they would address certain aspects of this. But yeah, the idea has some merit, and I do think it would probably slow down guys who are just jumping for money that otherwise would have stayed if you could pay them a certain amount. And at the same time, it's not going to stop Ohio State from going and get whoever they want to. I think the impact might be minimal, but maybe it's more than that. There would be an impact, though, and probably for the better, although not if you are a team that was hoping all of this would bring everybody closer. This instead just moves everybody back to sort of where they were, I feel like.
Today, and at about 4:50 or so, 4:55, we'll have Dave Aranda from a recorded interview. Craig, he said earlier to us that someone who cost $300,000 last year cost $500,000 or $600,000 this year.
I'm not surprised. I think there's very clearly a website out there. We have guests on there all the time, but they flash the cash like it's the coolest thing in the world. And let's talk about players getting paid. And here's how much they're worth, even though we don't really have anything but a secret formula that you just trust us on that tells you how much these guys are worth. But sure, we'll just go along with the fact that this guy who's never played a down of college football is worth $7.5 million over the next 4 years, whatever the hell that is. I think agents. And I think the media, in some cases, I think are driving the prices up as much as anything. I also think there's particular schools who have more to spend and no end in sight on the blank checks that they also very clearly bump the prices up. And they do that because they know there's a certain point where, yeah, this dude's not worth this much money, but if this is the way we get him, this is how we get him. And so then this guy who shouldn't be worth $700,000, should bid more of like $400,000, is now $750,000 because now you've gotten into this bidding war, and one school, maybe from Lubbock, has decided to go like extra high so that it's just over. Mm-hmm. And you know, I don't know. I don't know how you curtail all of this, but this would be a step in trying to do that. But yeah, I think the forces in play, the schools, certain ones, the media, a certain one, especially on 3, and then the agents have all contributed to driving up prices probably higher than they normally would be.
Well, you know, if an NFL player with if an NFL quarterback is worth $40 million a year, right? That's your kind of your going rate at $40 million, and then it's more if you happen to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or whoever. But the going rate's $40 million. A guy who hasn't accomplished that much in a field that's way more wide open, you know, should be probably worth about 1/40th of that, like $1 million a year with all the things that are going on, but maybe even not in that much. But these things have gotten so far blown out of proportion because of the cloak and dagger secrecy of all that. And that's why I think we need, especially considering that most of the schools that are doing this are public institutions, yeah. I think those things should be out in the open.
No, we'll tell you about everything with a regular student, but we can't talk about how much money we're paying the wide receiver. Like, we got to keep that like it's state secrets.
Well, that's like a HIPAA law. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we can't tell you about that.
Well,
nah.
I'm not opposed. I mean, good for the players to have their prices get driven up by the adults. Whether that's be your cousin serving as your agent or your old high school coach or whatever the case may be. So I'm not poo-pooing on that. But, yeah, I think the prices have skyrocketed probably past expectations because of several factors driving them that way, like overdoing the amount of value in a way, or just the lack of clarity that allows agents to kind of play all the sides against one another and just continuously drive up prices. Or you just have hungry donors that are willing to cut whatever check they need to get whoever they need to win what they want to. And so all of those things lead to a perfect storm for players and for agents, and not so much for the schools. But you know what? They made their bed, they can lie in it. I mean, that's also where I come from, is there as much – they could have cut a deal like 15 years ago and everybody would be making similar amounts of money and everybody would be on a similar page, and they opened the door for all this to be as chaotic as it is. But, yeah, I absolutely believe I'm absolutely not surprised whatsoever that there was a massive jump up, and I bet there's another massive jump up next year, and there's going to be some quarterback with some agent claiming he got offered $15 million from Texas Tech, and somebody will either answer that or not, and LSU will sign him for $17 million, and good for him, even though the highest offer might have been like $7 million. That's just the way you play the game. You know?
Yeah, and that's part of even free agency and pro leagues.
Of course, yeah.
Like, for example, there are some agents that a lot of that is still not public knowledge, but it's pretty much known.
I think in the pro sports, though, that they all know, because
they have to show what he's going to get paid.
They all know what's actually they know what the Bucks offered and what they're allowed to offer. There's no cap on this. You can literally say whatever you want to, plus a Lamborghini, plus the keys to this apartment, plus whatever you want to throw in that bag. It's whatever you want it to be. So yeah, there's not the same type of regulation. There's a lot of just trust me, bro. Just trust me, this valuation's real. Just trust me, this is what Texas Tech or BYU or Ohio State or Texas offered me. Just trust me. Yeah, they offered my wide receiver recruit $15 million last weekend. Just trust me. And his offer might have been like, and I'm going way too high, but like they offered my guy $5 million last week. Now, in some cases, yeah, I think that's true. I think there's also times where that guy got offered $3 million, but you said it's $5 million because the next school says, all right, we'll pay him $6 million.
Yeah,
and that's just smart business.
I'm not for everybody having the same salary cap is one thing, but I'm not naive enough to know that other schools are going to pay other players and their cap is going to go up higher. If you have it, use it. If you can do it, it's a part of the rules. Use it. I'm not saying that Ohio State should share with Purdue. They do that when it comes to TV and media, but I'm not saying that they should slide $25 million over a 2-year period of time to Northwestern.
But I do think that there needs to be, I mean, when you're talking about competitive balance, there needs to be a top and a bottom. And so I think there needs to be some sort of competitive balance.
Well, what it is what they did, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we'll have the house settlement. You have up to $20.5 million that you can use for your sports. Mm-hmm. And you can use up to that. Not everybody is, but you can use up to that. And if somebody wants to do 30, but you're getting 20.5 now. What's wrong with that?
What if somebody wants to use 30? Well,
if they can.
Well, somebody wants to use 45.
45. So like you have to have a cap to the top and a cap to the bottom.
But they were that's what they thought they had.
Because if you don't have a cap to the bottom, though, just think about the A's, like in Major League Baseball,
right? Or the Twins.
Like there's no cap to the bottom, so they can just decide, like, I'm just going to take all these losses and let the Yankees and Dodgers pay me all year long. So there's got to be a cap to the top and a cap to the bottom, because if you don't put a cap at the top, then it's going to get way out of control.
But like you said, the Dodgers don't, or the NFL is really one of the best leagues. But that doesn't mean that everybody spends the same amount of money that you can. Eventually, you have to. You're almost told you have to spend a certain amount over 2 or 3 years.
I don't think there's any need for a minimum, because I think if you're going to try to play cheapskate, you're going to drive yourself out of business. No, so you don't even need to say, like, well, at minimum you got to spend $10 million, and if somebody goes, no, I can only afford $8.5, well then, buddy, I think you're in the wrong business. I think you need to go join a lower level league. So I don't think there's necessarily that. And I'm also not for a salary cap unless we want to fully professionalize this thing, because who are you to tell me what my team's worth? And if I want to spend $72 million on 2026 Michigan Wolverines, who are you to tell me I can't do that? This isn't the NFL. Now, the NFL has those rules in place because they all have found a great way to all eat and have the same amount of plates, and they get so much on their plate that they don't need to have an extra $20 million to go try to win the next Super Bowl, because it's laid out in their agreement with the Players Association and the owners and all of those meetings that they have. And the difference is they're all on the same team. They're all Team NFL. Colleges are Team Michigan and Team Ohio State, and then eventually they're like Team Big Ten when they need to be, but mostly they're team individuals. And then when they have to be, they're team league, but they don't give a damn about TCU or about Houston, and they sure as hell don't give a damn if Houston or TCU can spend as much money as they can in football, nor should they, because what concern is it of theirs that Willie Fritz be able to spend as much money as Kyle Whittingham? All they care about is Kyle Whittingham winning a national championship. I don't give a damn if Houston makes a bowl game in the next 25 years. Why should we have to lower our ability to just come down to them? And so I'm not for a salary cap. My whole thing with this is it makes a lot of sense, and it would probably be good for roster retention. It's not going to stop the transfer portal, so we would still have that. My thing with it is, then what was the whole freaking point of this?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Then what was the point of the house settlement?
It was a $20.5 million cap. That was it, right? And then all of a sudden, because of the way the rules are written, you can go 50 or 35. And
well, you sort of can, but now this is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get further and further like this. Now that's why they're proposing this, because now they want more than they have already. This is to add on to what was originally agreed to.
Yeah, so if you have 20.5 and just say you're Michigan and you're doing 35 for overall, now what you're asking is, can we use 50? And
because we're going to use 35 on this part, but now we need the extra 15 to use on just keeping our players, guys. It's for the health of the game, is to retain people. But yeah, and then when they get 50, and then all of a sudden they realize a bunch of others are now going to spend 50, then they'll be like, well, how about this carve out that allows us to do this over here? And that's all it's all it ever is. That's the entire history of the sport is how do I get an advantage?
Well, even if before there was any NIL, there were still players being paid based on what you could do. But there's still always the haves and the have-nots with facilities, commitments, salaries, or whatever, even before the athletes were getting paid.
And this is also why, in the next story we have here is about the SCORE Act vote being pushed back. And that's why the hypocrisy that exists in the leadership, we talked about it before, they're not negotiating in earnest on any of these things.
No, they're not.
They're all trying to do this. So the SCORE Act vote's going to get pushed back, and it's going to get pushed back because it's never going to pass.
By the way, it was supposed to be next week, the vote, and now they've moved it into April.
Yeah, it's going to get moved into May. It's going to get moved into June. It's never going to pass.
How is this not this country's top priority right now? I don't understand.
It's awful.
And right now, there's so many other things that are going to keep jumping in front of it. that it's not going to pass. It's not going to get out there for the vote that people want to have. But also, if you're Ohio State or members of the Big Ten that are pushing for passage of the SCORE Act, and then on the same token saying, well, we would still like to spend more money on our players, what the hell are we talking about? Like you're trying to absolutely rig the game so that some people will play by the rules and you will just keep changing them.
And that's why eventually you're going to have to go to some sort of a super league if you want it to be any sort of sensical, because no matter what you do, and no matter what you pass, you're still going to have this team, that team that go, not enough, and we're not going to play by the same rules.
And that's when some schools are going to have to make the decision that maybe they will anyway, of whether or not they want to be a part of that. It may not just be an invitation. It might be, this is what you have to spend, or this is how much it's going to cost you to get into this poker game.
Well, regardless.
And some can, and there's probably just as many that cannot.
Regardless, I think it's an idea that's worth some merit, and interested to see how the other leagues respond to it. I don't know that it would make a lot of sense for Brett Yormark and all of his teams. It would make sense for some of his teams, but probably not all of them. I'm not sure how the ACC would look at that. I would imagine Florida State would probably want to be able to spend more. I would think that Miami's never going to want to have a cap on anything.
Yeah, they're going to always be in.
I'm not sure that Syracuse is in the same position to want to be like that, or Boston College for that matter. So maybe this is just another layer to whatever is going to separate into whatever that's going to be eventually, because as you see, every turn they try to make to keep this thing sort of as is, it just gets ripped apart the moment it gains any traction or it makes any kind of a sense to keep it together, because frankly the biggest schools don't want to keep it together to some degree. So I think it's a worthy idea. I'm not like, it's not boo Big Ten or anything like that.
No,
I mean, hey,
no.
it's if I was them, I'd do the same thing. I mean, because they stand to gain probably more than anybody.
Your favorite program's one of those out. They're one of the halves in OU. Mine, I don't know. I think Nebraska is, and Paul, Florida State, yours is too. One note about the SCORE
start
Act.
acting like it.
Well, no, you're right. Basketball is.
Yeah.
One note on the SCORE Act. Did you guys know? You hear about? Whoa.
Yeah. That's good news, though. That's good news. Whatever we just heard. So, yeah.
Did you hear about the Lane Kiffin rule when it comes to the SCORE Act?
I did not get to read all the way into it.
It was, they call it the Lane Kiffin rule. Nearly 4 months after the failed vote the first time, one of the SCORE Act modifications under discussion includes guidelines related to the timing of coaching hires, potentially even prohibiting the poaching of head coaches during the team's playing season. That will never work. You cannot tell somebody they can't go take another job. You can't. I don't know how, but that was something that they put in the next level, as if that might make a difference. I'd love to see that happen, but it's not going to happen.
Do you know what that's for? That's lip service to the
What
coaches
about the
can do it.
coaches?
What about the coaches?
Yeah.
But it's lip service to it. Because, again, I don't think anybody wants to limit anybody's movement. They're just using the coaches as an example to say this is why the player should have it too. That's it. They don't want the coaches' movement limited, because then that would allow them not to have them to have their movement limited.
It would just be another lawsuit.
It's just pointing out a hypocrisy in the system. By the way, Duke finally became Duke.
Don't ruin the day.
They finally became Duke, 71-65 over Siena. Siena just straight ran out of gas.
By the way, Duke, I'm not 18 of 21 free throws. Siena was 6 for 6 to the line. There's a huge difference at the free throw line. Maybe they committed a lot more fouls or not, but that helped them. It wasn't easy, but Siena 71-65 Duke. The other games that are going on, then we're going to come. You want to add something? The other game, Michigan State up 15 over North Dakota State first half. Arkansas up 13 over Hawaii first half. And Vanderbilt 65-60 over McNeese State. The Cowboys are hanging tight with still just under 6 minutes left in that game. Did Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri? We were discussing baseball and the pro and all. He is saying that if college football doesn't get a hold of itself, or athletics, then they're going to end up like baseball.
Okay. All right. I've heard that 5,000 times already. All right.
And look, maybe that's true one day.
He actually did say that.
But maybe that happens one day. But I don't think that that's anywhere close to happening. And two, he is pretending that like some point in the past it was fair. Like, he's pretending like there was this golden age where other schools weren't just spending more illegal money than other schools were spending. There's not this period in the past, like football, like college football wasn't this golden beacon of doing everything right. And then all of a sudden, NIL and the transfer portal came around, and because the NCAA wasn't ready for it, it's ruined everything. It was always a completely imperfect thing that became a racket, especially when the TV money exploded. And so if you just want to take it from when the TV money exploded to now, it's been a ridiculous racket. And to pretend like it wasn't anything other than that is a little bit naive. And I really do like Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's a really smart guy, but that's an intellectually dishonest argument, in my opinion.
I think the quote is coming from a guy who clearly doesn't have as much as he needs or as much as others have that he would like to be closer to. Sounds like a guy who is trying to hope for some level of shrinking of the gap. And his quote was, if you have teams that have $45 million rosters competing against teams that have $15 and $20 million rosters, you're going to run the risk of turning into MLB, where you have the Dodgers and Marlins. Well, the Marlins have won a couple of World Series because, you know what?
And one of them they bought.
Yes, they decided to spend money at a certain time, but the Dodgers, yes, they outspend, but in college football, Ohio State wasn't ever paying the same amount, zero, as Tarleton State. They were always spending more money than Tarleton State. They were always spending more money than TCU or Baylor most any given year. So that's a stupid argument to make. It's nonsensical, and I understand what he's trying to get at, but it just rings really hollow when, dude, you're way better off than a lot of other schools, even if you're not as well off as some of the schools you would like to be closer to. So, yeah, I don't think college football is going to turn into all of a sudden Nebraska is the Miami Marlins. If they're the Miami Marlins, it won't be because of spending money and things like that, because they hired a sorry-ass head coach who didn't recruit the right players, and that's ultimately what it boils down to. Yes, the money matters and getting the players and getting the coach, but this isn't a great comparison by Eli Drinkwitz, and it's not as though, yes, college football has always been some equal playing field. I don't know why we have that in our heads. Maybe because for the longest time people just assume, well, nobody's buying players, and now they are, so now it's uneven. No, now it's just all out in front. That's the only difference. And now the money's more exorbitant than ever because it's out in front, because they can't limit it to $1,000 in an envelope after the spring game type of a deal. So, I'm just kind of eye rolling my over here at that quote, and I understand the sentiment, but I don't agree with it whatsoever.
So, in other words, you're a part of the upper half, and you still don't think it's enough, because think about those who not get the money in the SEC or other the revenue. Missouri's a big school too. It's a very big school, and so there's Eli Drinkwitz. He's at least not afraid to say something. Now, you could always disagree with him. We get like, if you don't disagree,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
It doesn't mean you should. Exactly right. All right, our guest will be at 4:20. Mike Latulip will be at 4:20, and then Craig's off the radar, and then our interview with Dave Aranda.
Yeah, I think that we need to. I think the biggest thing, and the SCORE Act is tied into this with Eli Drinkwitz, we need to stop pretending like the good old days were the good old days. Like, there were plenty of problems in the good old days, and I think when you come to situations like the SCORE Act and like these things, a lot of coaches are saying, we really just wish we didn't have to play the players anymore, and we really wish that we could pay them less, and we really wish that we could do all these things, and that's why we need the government involved, and that's why we need this, and we need this, and we need this. It's a refusal to accept that there were flaws in the system that now you're having to make up for, as opposed to one little leak in the dam that you could have plugged. Now the dam has collapsed. So that's where I think a lot of people on this are not admitting the system was bad in the first place. It was bad. It was illegal. The Supreme Court told you it was illegal. And not saying that out loud enough and trying to be like, well, it just was so much better in the good old days. And then getting politicians like Tommy Tuberville or Ted Cruz to be like, well, NIL has ruined college sports. Well, not for the people who are getting the money, not for the TV networks, not for that. So all those platitudes have to go away, and you have to live in the truth of what it is. And I just don't think that they're completely doing that. And like I said before, they are not really negotiating in earnest, because what they want is to be robber barons again.
Well, the hay's out the barn, all that. They're trying to gather it back in. It's the wind's blowing. There's a tornado. There's rain. It's not going back in. It's just not. And anyone that would allow it, that's getting what is now available, would just be like taking money out of their own pocket.
Yeah, man. He's dead on, man, because the Indiana Hoosiers, that perennial power that won that national championship for the first time ever. Yeah, the Yankees they were, right? Or are they the Dodgers? I don't know which one they were.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that scares the old guard is that, okay, if Indiana can all of a sudden figure this out, and even though they're in the Big Ten and they have a bit of a head start when it comes to the television financials and all that, it's way easier to contain when you just have, 10 enemies to fight. And now you have so many others. Yeah. You have so many other, the market's so much more open.
And I know that's not the greatest comparison, but I laugh at, like, there's this boogeyman, and it's like, do we just watch Indiana win a freaking national title? Now, yes, they did it by spending money, at least in part. They also had a great coach. They also had the right talent. It's not just the money. There's plenty of teams that have tried to go buy national championships that were unsuccessful in doing so. There were some just last year that spent a lot of money to make the playoff and nothing more, or to win a playoff game and nothing more. So, spending money matters. If you don't, you're not going to win a national championship. But I don't think that everybody should only be allowed to spend $25 million, even though Ohio State wants to spend $55, just because Houston can't spend $15. Yeah. And I'm just throwing names out there for the sake of the argument, but yeah, that's where I am, and I think the divide is greater now because with the money so public, we aren't getting $100 handshakes in every locker. Now we're openly bidding and sometimes fibbing the numbers through an agent or an intermediary or whatever to get the price going up and up and up. So the prices have definitely become way more exorbitant than they ever were before. This type of money was not flowing around even in the darkest days of the bag men. No, not anywhere close to that. So that is true. And I think that everybody, no matter how much money, sometimes got to be like, well, we can't spend $70 million or can't spend this amount of money. Yeah. Even they've got to be prudent with their money to some degree, even if there's a blank check.
Ohio State's losing money.
Right. So, like I said, I understand the point that he was making. I just don't think it really registers probably like he intended to, at least not for me.
All right, when we come back, I woke up in the middle of the night. Well, I'll tell you this story when we come back from the break. Our next guest, Mike Latulip, the Field of 68. He's also a part of CBS Sports and college basketball. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Amazing deals going on right now. How about this one? The 2026 Ram 1500 Lone Star. This is like the as consistent and as awarded and honored as you get when it comes to the Ram trucks. Now, you can get 2.9% financing for 72 months plus $5,250 in a rebate. Or if you want to stretch the payments out, you can do that, 4.9% financing. So the financing percentage goes up, but for 84 months, an extra year, and still get the $5,250. They just dropped a deal that's turning heads. 2026 Ram 1500 Lone Star, 2.9 or 4.9% financing for either 72 or 84 months, and either one, both of them, will also be $5,250 in a rebate. So you can get it right now. Ted Teague, CEO and General Manager. David Gray runs all of the men and women that are the ones who will sell you. First of all, give you a look at the cars, test drive the cars, and then tell you all the details. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Of deals at Alan Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $11,000 off a new Ram 2500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Alan Samuels.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery,
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication, body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
We will have our first guest of the day, Mike Latulip, in just a moment. 365 Sports games. We gave you the update on Duke. They came back to beat Siena when they were down at halftime. Right now, Vanderbilt up by, I just saw it was 11 when I went into the other room just a minute ago. Michigan State's rolling. Arkansas rolling against Hawaii. And Vanderbilt now up 72-63 with less than a minute to play.
Dame Sarr, by the way, who's from Italy, was one of their late signees at Duke, came down to like Duke, Kansas, Michigan, like, you name a who's who. He really was fun to watch for Duke today in the second half. He played with a ton of energy. The Boozer twins played really well in the second half. All that was to be expected when they had such a bad first half. But to Jerry McNamara's and Siena's credit, they played so friggin' hard. I mean, they really did play about 98% well enough to get the win. And just, a lot of other days, if it was a regular season game, I bet you they win. Honestly, if it was a regular season,
if it was in early November.
Yeah, if it was a regular season game, I bet you they win.
Yeah.
But March is kind of a different animal, and Duke woke up, and that's a bummer for Siena. So.
Yeah, that gave them a shot. That's what it's all about. One of those, like Maryland County, shocked the world, and no one had ever seen that before.
Baltimore County.
I say Baltimore County, Maryland. Baltimore County, the 16 seed that stunned Virginia in 2000 and also 18. So there's still games going on. There's a whole set of games coming up tonight as well. And so we'll keep you up to date with them as we get them. Waiting for our guest, again, Mike Latulip here in just a moment. 365 Sports. Logan Begessi today is a part of putting on the mothership along with producer in Rez. Craig's going to have an interesting story in Off the Radar about the Masters Champions Dinner, so some details on that coming up. We're now joined by Mike Latulip, the Field of 68, CBS Sports, and more. He joins us. So last night, Mike, and I sent you a text or maybe a direct message. I woke up like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Just couldn't go back to sleep. No reason why. And I saw your note about Miami of Ohio and the conversation. I said, man, I'm going to contact you. You did text me back. We appreciate you joining us. And how about, my friend, Siena takes Duke to the end, and then we'll get into Miami of Ohio winning that first game last night.
Yeah, I mean, the madness started early today, it felt like. And I love the approach that Jerry McNamara had to that game. They played 5 guys the entire game. And, I think Duke, it's just one of those games where you're missing Patrick Gongba, you're missing Caleb Foster. And I think people forget with that team. You look up out on the court, and it's 4 freshmen and a sophomore out there. That's a really young group experiencing March Madness, most of them for the first time. And so I think this type of game will center you and lock you in a little bit. It's you just have to survive. I mean, they say it, survive in advance. That's what you got to do, and that's what Duke did today. But it was tenuous there for a little bit.
So Miami, Ohio, we had Travis Steele on last week, early in the week, and he told us, look, we tried to schedule games, nobody would play us. High Point wins today. Their coach, we try to schedule games, nobody's going to play us. Where is the middle ground where these mid-majors and the good ones can start to get those games and make it regular instead of getting and they also get like the other schools like, well, they wanted too much money. Well, you have a lot of money, so shut up.
Or not have to worry about winning their conference tournament to get into the tournament.
Yeah, I think what has to change is the high major teams are just following the formula that contributes to a solid net ranking. And the net ranking bakes into the formula for the NCAA tournament. So until that changes, I don't see this changing. I saw the High Point coach go on for the post-game interview and basically said, this is why high major teams should play mid-major teams. I don't know if taking down a high major would make a high major want to play a mid-major, but I do think that for a lot of these schools, and Miami and High Point, I think, are in unique situations. There's a lot of schools that need the money. They need to have these bye games. Miami and High Point are in unique financial situations in that regard, and they're really good teams. So I think part of it is hard to project because Miami will come into next year. If they get their returners back, they probably will get scheduled because on a neutral floor, they may be a top 50 team, which is a quad 1 game for those teams, for high major teams. So that could change for Miami. It could change for High Point as well. It's the next mid-major that is like a Miami that wins 25 games this year that didn't go to the tournament. What position are they in next year?
Mike, I felt like I was living in an alternate reality when Indiana became football national champions. I don't know how I'd react to Nebraska basketball national champions, but we're one step closer to that. Can you just talk about Nebraska ball, their opener, and what a story this is amongst an ocean of great stories in this tournament?
Well, I think it's fitting we just talked about Miami because I think Nebraska at times is like supercharged Miami, and what those two teams have in common is their connectivity is off the charts, and you see it offensively. You certainly see it defensively. The defense that Nebraska plays, where they force you baseline, they rotate over, they scramble, they force you into. People will look and they see Nebraska and they say, oh, well, they allow teams to shoot 51% of their shots from 3. And you think when you come into the game that you're just going to be able to shoot threes. And I've said it all year, Nebraska doesn't allow you to shoot threes. They just leave you with threes because they take away the paint. So you're forced to shoot threes, and they're usually really low percentage shots. So I've loved this group. I think the fact that this group in particular was the one to get that first NCAA tournament win is so fitting. It's been brewing for years, I think, because they have a tremendous fan base. They have a really solid backing, and they stuck with Fred Hoiberg. They could have easily, like a lot of these programs, after 3-4 years of call it underachieving or mediocrity, moved on, but they stuck with them. They saw the vision, and this is the result.
So Hoiberg has won before, and is this team similar to how he won when they were bombing away at Iowa State?
Kind of similar but different. I thought that the Iowa State teams that had Royce White and DeAndre Kane, they were more athletic. Like that was kind of their calling card. This team is much more built on the connectivity and I think almost like the skill level, although those Iowa State teams were also skilled. But I do think there's things that he took from his NBA career, both playing and coaching, particularly with the Bulls, to be able to bring back to college and play a more modernized style of basketball. And that's what they do, certainly offensively, with the movement, the space, the cutting, having Rink Mass be a guy that can step out, play 5 out. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think good coaches evolve. And if he were to play the same way he played at Iowa State, although it worked for him at Iowa State then, it probably wouldn't work now in this era. So give a lot of credit to Fred Hoiberg for understanding that, making the change, and reaping the rewards.
So tomorrow we've got Kansas and St. John's play their early round games. I think a lot of people are assuming wins there, but not to just assume that. What do you think about that potential matchup on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think St. John's has got to get past Northern Iowa because every single year we see it, whether it's Yale over Auburn, whether it's Drake over Missouri last year, whether it's Oakland over Kentucky 2 years ago, those clashes in pace. When you play a team that like a St. John's that is, their pace is supercharged, they're top 30 nationally in pace against a team in Northern Iowa who's 363rd. That's where you see some of these upsets. So St. John's has to take care of business, particularly on the glass. They got to get out in transition. You don't want to face this Northern Iowa team in the half court all game. But if they were to advance, and if Kansas were to advance, I mean, you got to think they're licking their chops because Duke today, now I don't think that's going to necessarily matter long term, but if you're St. John's and Kansas, how could you not think that Duke looks vulnerable today with no Caleb Foster, with no Patrick Gongba? But I think that's going to be a major clash in the front court between St. John's and Kansas. I just think Kansas, ends up winning out there because to deduce it down a little bit, I just like their backcourt better. And St. John's, it's been hit or miss in the backcourt all year.
Mike, what's your ceiling for Iowa State in this tournament? I was just going through, and I know Michigan's the heavy favorite in that region, but what are your thoughts on the Cyclones and where they can take this thing?
I think they can go to a Final Four. Now, and I have Michigan getting there, but Michigan is a little bit more vulnerable now with the injury to LJ Kaysen. I mean, their depth is taking a hit, and I think people are kind of forgetting about Iowa State. It hasn't been as trendy of a Final Four pick, mainly because I think we look at Michigan, Arizona, and Duke as being the three that are a cut above the rest. But I think Iowa State, whether it's the guard play with Lipsy, Traore is a guy that can guard your best player. They turn you over. Momcilovic is one of the best shooters in college basketball. Joshua Jefferson's one of the biggest matchup nightmares in college basketball. And Blake Buchanan, I think, has been a severely underrated big all season. And so I think it's all there for Iowa State. This is the second year in a row that TJ Otzelberger has found a way to blend offensive and defensive efficiency. Usually it was really good defense and we'll see what we can do offensively. Now he's got a top 15 offense and defense. Same case last year, but this year I feel like the parts fit a little bit better together. They don't have the injury bug that they had last year. So I'm bullish on Iowa State because I do think Santa Clara can knock off Kentucky. And who knows what happens with Miami of Ohio and Tennessee. I mean, that Midwest region could experience some chaos, and I think Iowa State's equipped to handle it.
So when I saw the clip from you this morning, this is one of the quotes that also made me want to get you on it because there's so much information or lack of it when it comes to Miami of Ohio. I'm tired of dysfunction, bubble teams getting rewarded when they have 17 Q1 opportunities and squander most of them. This is a tournament that determines the ultimate winner. Put winners in the freaking tournament.
That's how I feel about it. I think we've seen time and time again, and you saw it again last night with Miami against SMU. I mean, at some point, when you look at these teams like a Santa Clara who finishes towards the top of the WCC, like a Miami, like an Akron, I mean, these are teams that have just crazy good winning habits. And you may look at metrics and say, well, they're 90th in KenPom or they're 65th in KenPom. It's like, well, the winning habits you have that lead to winning plays, those are what end up in a tournament that's filled that's filled with pressure, that's filled with momentum. That's what ends up winning you games. So I'm tired of seeing, or the reasoning for a team getting in, like an Auburn, if they were to go 18-15 and get in, well, here's the volume of games that they played against quad one competition. It's like, well, at some point, if you lose a ton of those games, that has to mean something. At some point, if you haven't displayed winning habits all year, that has to mean something. And I just feel like this Miami team, this game of basketball is meant to be played with an edge. It's the ultimate sum of the parts game. And one piece can disrupt that. And when you have all the pieces pulling in unison, magic happens. And that's what you've seen this year with Miami, Ohio. So like, to look at their resume and say, well, they don't have any quad one wins, or look at their non-conference schedule, at some point we have to be able to honestly assess a team and have a bar for getting into the NCAA tournament. Like, does this team display winning habits despite their non-conference schedule? I thought Miami did that. That's why they got in. And I thought they proved last night that, that they belong. Because the metrics, to me, like the metrics, we can look at Ken Palm and all these things. The metrics will always have a blind spot for what's inside of a team. And what's inside of that Miami team is what makes them different.
Well, Mike, and you have a unique perspective in that you played the game, and you see the jerseys back there. You're at Wright State, you're at Illinois, and not that you had to play, you had to have winning habits at either one. Like what it takes in a locker room to gel, to come together and all that. And I agree with you. When you make arguments that a school like Auburn should be in, well, they had a bunch of opportunities to show it. Aren't you just making the argument like, well, if this team was in this league, yeah, well, Auburn is, and they lost a bunch of those games. Why are we going to give them more games to prove they're just going to do that again?
That's a great point, and it's one that I want to walk through here because it's an important distinction to make. If Miami were to be in the SEC, do I think Miami would finish in the top half of that league? Probably not. And the reason for that is because, there is a gap in athleticism, a physical gap in athleticism that over the course of a 20-game conference schedule may bear itself out. But that's not what the NCAA tournament is. We've seen time and time again, whether it's Duke and Siena today, whether it's High Point in Wisconsin, like that gap in athleticism in a single game scenario shrinks. And that's why we see FDU knock off Purdue. That's why we see Oakland beat Kentucky. That's why we see those types of wins. So why don't we look at the NCAA tournament and grade seeding and who gets in based off of that, what this tournament is? It's not like hypotheticals around how Miami would fare in the Big East or in the SEC. That's a totally different conversation. That's not what this tournament is. So I think, you should be graded on how you fared relative to the competition that you played, and Miami aced that test this year.
So do you have a dark horse? Miami's obviously, they're in. I know the two HBCUs, it's great news for Howard and Prairie View, but we understand their clock is probably ticking. Is there a team, like TCU winning today, is there a team in the 8-9 or above that you look like you think is going to make a run? Like you mentioned Santa Clara, which could win. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think Santa Clara can win a game. I think Akron could potentially win a game. I think Texas can win. We've seen 12 out of the last 14 years that one of those teams that plays in the play-in, at least one of them advances past their next game. So whether that be Miami, whether that be Texas, I don't know at this point. Just with the way that Miami has played, it's really hard for me to write that team off. With the way that they're wired, with the way that now they understand, and this is really smart of Travis Steele. They understood last night against SMU, and they really haven't done this a ton this year. The three-point variance, like they know that has to be their friend because they're not as good on the glass. So they have to get it back with their three-point shots. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the way they're going to play, we saw it with Ohio in 2012 with John Gross. That team knocked down 16-plus threes in their game against Tennessee and Georgetown and advanced to the Sweet 16. And I think Miami could do the same thing. So, and then looking at the other side of the bracket, I think everybody thought Michigan or thought South Florida would be a popular pick. I don't necessarily see that. Could VCU knock off North Carolina? Possibly. Could Texas A&M make things kind of tough for Houston if they advance? Maybe. I don't see. And Hofstra, I'll mention Hofstra because I mentioned the pace clash. That's another one with Alabama. No Aiden Holloway. That's one that whether Hofstra or Akron, those two teams could meet. So we could see either of those teams in the Sweet 16, given the absences of JT Toppin, given the absences of Aiden Holloway. I think I just listed 9 of them. I think that's how crazy this tournament can get.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be a huge separation between the 4 seeds and anything in the 14 or 15 or 16 or whatever in that double digits. Man, I'm so glad. One, I'm so glad I woke up in the middle of the morning and I happened to check like maybe reactions from last night's games, and yours was there. The game isn't played on a spreadsheet. Too much now is analytical. Too much now is numbers. I know I love those sites, but let them play and see what happens. We really appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate your time, and have a great rest of the week watching the tournament for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on.
Ryan Latulip, he played at Wright State, played at
Mike
Illinois.
Latulip.
You
call him
Mike, yeah, I'm sorry. Mike played at Wright State. He transferred, and guess what he had to do? Sit out a year before he played 3 years at Illinois. So thanks to Mike. Appreciate his time. When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar, and then Dave Aranda sits down with us in studio. Plus, we have the big finish, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations here in Waco. There was none like just a handful of years ago. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. Go online and you can order to go pick it up yourself, get it delivered to you, and it is obviously loaded with specials. There's always something on the front page, whether it's like cinnamon toast, or a pizza, my favorite, the large thin crust all meat pizza, salads, wings, sandwiches, and more. Bob Mock, the owner, with 5 locations in Waco. Fastest growing pizza brand in America, as I mentioned, Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Join the celebration. It's 27 years for Richard Car Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings. Encore GX offers stylish design, a quiet, refined ride, advanced safety, and a premium interior. Right now, during Richard Car's 27th anniversary sale, save $5,000 on any 2026 Buick Encore GX in stock. Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
At Richard Car, we give you more.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. Time for a little Off the Radar. And look at some things from around the world of sports that are ongoing here in the background of March Madness and the World Baseball Classic and a variety of other events. So let's dive into it, and then Dave Aranda around the corner as well. I'll save you any score updates for right now. You got your phone. You can check those out. I'm going to go ahead and dive in here, and I want to start off with I was hoping to have the World Baseball Classic rating, but that's still not out. And apparently it's a reason having to do with the new Nielsen ratings and how all of that works, I can bet with confidence that it will be a very good rating, although the game wasn't necessarily the most entertaining, even though it was close. I don't know if it'll be historic or not, but if it is, I do want to remind everybody that all the TV ratings right now are historic because the numbers have fluctuated so much that you see all these leagues like, it's the highest March Madness ever. It's the highest Super Bowl. Well, because everybody's experiencing highs, and if you're not, that's actually concerning because everybody's numbers have been boosted. So I don't have that, but I will say I did a little shorts video, or not, it wasn't short, it was like 17 minutes. So I did a little smoke break on the World Baseball Classic, and I hope you can check that out. But yeah, I was hoping to have WBC news here, but unfortunately don't have that, although as I did, I think, mention in that video, a lot of talk about how this launches into the Olympics and how that launches into future WBCs, and to the point where I actually saw a headline where MLB's looking at like a mid-season tournament, and I wanted to just go jump off a bridge because that's what the NBA's done, and I don't think they need to go that far. But we will see, and I will give you that rating whenever I do get it. So we will talk about, to start off with, the Cleveland Browns and a proposed rule change, talking about all these different twists and turns and changes and things that people are proposing. Well, I just wondered what you guys thought of this. The Browns are proposing a rule change that would allow NFL teams to trade draft picks 5 years into the future instead of the current rule, which is 3 years into the future. The league said that only 2 teams submitted proposals. This from ESPN and the AP, that will be considered by owners at the league meetings later this month. The Steelers had a proposal about contacting players during the free agent negotiating period. The tush push was not part of the stories and the proposals that they're putting out there, but instead this one from the Cleveland Browns was the other, along with the Steelers' free agency proposal. So the Browns looking to basically allow themselves to trade draft picks even farther down the line. Why would they want to do that? Because they absolutely suck at drafting, and this is the only way to try to even figure that part of things out, I suppose. But I don't know. I came across that yesterday, and I wasn't surprised about the source being the Cleveland Browns, because who else has done less with more number 1, top 5, top 10 draft picks in the Cleveland Browns? But any thoughts on this proposed rule change? I feel like it would be very NBA-y, where now all of a sudden you're hoping that, like, if you were to find a Sam Presti-like general manager in the NFL, I'm sure there's a guy who could do wonders with this. But you're still the Cleveland Browns, so maybe this doesn't make a bit of a difference. But if the right team were to find the right guy who really knows how to make this work, like OKC did, and you stockpile draft picks and then stockpile them some more and then stockpile them some more to the point where you're trading and getting top picks and you still have like 20 of them left over, I guess that's what Cleveland would hopefully be going for, others potentially. But, one of the proposed rule changes, no tush push on the docket this year.
Oh,
I think that ran out of gas.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia wasn't as if they didn't convert 100% of them either.
Yeah, well, people have started to figure it out a little bit, and also I think that they've got to worry about the potential for the penalty that they were often committing now being reviewed. So I think that if they get that part of it where their obvious false starts can go away, then the tush push won't be as big of a deal. And other quarterbacks who are quad gods like Jalen Hurts can do the tush push, and it's fine. As far as the trading draft picks 5 years ahead, I absolutely hate that the NBA does this. Yeah. It does nothing for me to excite me about a trade. Like if the Spurs, who's my favorite team, made a trade and traded away a player, and then I look and they get back a player to – the other thing about NBA trades, you get like, oh, we trade away this player, we get this guy back who we're only going to cut in 2 weeks, but we can burn his contract and have more salary cap room next year. And it's like, ooh, they got a first-round draft pick from this team that perpetually sucks. Oh, it's in 2029.
Yeah.
Well, what do I care about that?
No.
I'm only going to notice that on draft night when all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, they got this pick. Oh, but this team got better, maybe because of the team we traded to them. So
more dumb on the NBA draft night is that when guys are selected, they're interviewing with a hat on that may say the Pelicans.
That's because of the league year.
Yeah, I know. And then 30 minutes later, they're with the Bucks, and that was always kind of a weird deal too.
Yeah, but I just think that so if the NFL is going to let me trade a draft pick for the 2031 draft pick this year, that doesn't do anything for me. If I'm why would I trade my Here's the other thing about the NFL, because of how things can turn around pretty fast. Why would I, unless I am the Browns and I have terrible ownership, and I've always had terrible ownership, would I trade a draft pick 5 years from now, seeing that, like, again, the careers are short in the NFL
because they don't work now.
Yeah, but other than that, like, why would the other teams do it? Like, why would the Bills agree to it?
Because you do draft well, and you say, all right, we got 3 first-round picks in 2029 now.
Well, they would basically do it to let the dumb teams feed them with draft picks.
Well, that's why it doesn't solve anything necessarily. Again, if you got Sam Presti, who knows how to stock these things and work them and maneuver them around, then I think you could really be onto something. I do think, though, that if you're typical Cleveland Browns ownership, then you would find a way to screw this up as well. And you are the ones proposing this. I think at this point it's coming from Cleveland because they've run out of ideas of how to do anything differently.
Yeah.
Now, there are some reasons that they did mention as to why this would be a great idea, and part of it was to allow greater flexibility for your rosters and be able to look a little bit further into the future. They also said that it would enable trades that would better reflect value of players and picks. Also, it would encourage more trades and more aggressiveness so that you'd see more of a hot market potentially if you're now dealing with more picks that you can throw to go get some superstar quarterback. And I do think that is true. I don't know if that would be good or not, but I do think that's true. If suddenly you have 2 extra first-rounders from 28 and 29 that you can't use because they're too far out, but now you can use them. But then does that turn into the NBA thing where you go, here's my next 5 first-round picks, and here you go for this one guy, and then you just totally obliterate anything that makes sense anymore because, like in the NBA, like Luka Doncic goes for a beat-up Anthony Davis and no first-round picks, and other trades you're getting like 5 first-round picks for a guy. There is that excitement and that ability to do some crazier things, I guess, like that. But it's just a proposal. We'll see if that goes through or not. To get approved, you would need 24 of the 32 NFL teams to agree to it. But, yeah, active trade market, greater flexibility could better help with long-term contracts and salary cap, and also just modernize is one of the reasons I saw as well, make it more like the NBA. But why would you want to be more like the NBA? You're the NFL. You don't need to have this crazy trade market because your regular season matters. It still matters. Now, it's also the NFL, so I guess I say that. There's also a really good chance that this would somehow work really, really well for them and would make it more exciting and on top of what's already great about the sport. But, yeah, just a couple of rules changes that have been proposed, so we will see where that goes. But it's interesting, the source here, the Cleveland Browns, who are always dealing at the top of the draft and always not managing to do much at all with that. But I definitely think there would probably be a team that you hate that would be really good at this and would find a way to get what they wanted and then also have like multiple first-rounders for like several years in a row and do the Sam Presti thing. So just found that kind of interesting and as a possibility here moving forward. Meanwhile, Netflix is in the baseball game, and a lot of talk about baseball. The World Baseball Classic, very successful. I mentioned at the top, haven't got the ratings for that yet, but already talk about doing midseason tournaments like the NBA or moving the WBC into the middle of Major League Baseball season. I'm not on board with that. I feel like there's a lot of people saying that, oh, well, the pitchers wouldn't be rusty, but is Paul Skeens going to suddenly go 9 innings in the middle of the year for Team USA? Are the Pirates going to be like, yeah, dude, just throw however many pitches you want to do? Like, I don't see that other side of the argument. But regardless, there's a lot of discourse about baseball, and I think there's a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of want to right now to try and take advantage of this bull by the horns and this momentum that you've created and hopefully ride it to some better days ahead. But one of the guys we'll be talking about baseball on a more regular basis moving forward on the Netflix broadcast will be Barry Bonds. The all-time home run leader is joining Netflix as a baseball analyst for the upcoming season. That was announced by Netflix earlier today. 61-year-old will be on pre- and post-game programs ahead of their MLB games, which will include opening night between the Giants and Yankees coming up on March the 25th. He'll also be around for the Field of Dreams game in August and will provide analysis for the 2026 Home Run Derby, which, of course, is also being aired on Netflix. And so those are the 3 big MLB Netflix crossovers, is the Field of Dreams game, the opener, the Giants-Yankees opener, the Field of Dreams game, and the Home Run Derby. He's going to be a part of all three of those. He'll be on the pre- and post-game desk with L. Duncan and also Anthony Rizzo and Albert Pujols. And this will be, a new era for him as a media guy and Netflix baseball.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much personality he has. Sometimes people can surprise you. He was a pretty quiet guy when it came to the media.
Did not,
but mostly I think that was because he was following the advice of counsel on the steroids thing, and not to get into it because he was so wrapped up in the Balco deal. But he did seem, and there were a lot of reporters that didn't like him because he was caustic, but I think he's one of the, like, steroids or no steroids, he's one of the greatest left-handed hitters that's ever played baseball, one of the greatest hitters ever. He's one of the greatest players ever.
And as it points out in one of the articles I read, like, he never officially, like, popped like officially on the MLB violation of the drug test or anything.
No, I mean he very clearly was doing something, but he
wasn't
again, they never got him. So
right.
So it's just everything that's happened in the steroid era is for spite when it comes to those things.
You wonder, he would have still been suspended, maybe banned, but it would have helped if he would have been a lot less of a prick at times.
Maybe, but that also shouldn't affect like
Andy Pettit looked at differently when he was hit.
Yeah,
he was
because Andy Pettit's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see it. By the way, I love that Anthony Rizzo's on. He's got tons of personality. I hope his career keeps moving up. I don't mean to like knock John Smoltz. John Smoltz, like during the main broadcast, like during the WBC, during the World Series,
I like
he's very, 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 very intelligent, and he knows the game so well.
Yeah.
I just like to watch a baseball game with I don't know. I guess I like the old school Dizzy Dean type guys who maybe have more fun. He just takes himself very seriously, and I just need somebody a little looser.
I like him.
Of course, I'm a Jerry Remy guy from the Red Sox that just was kind of fun.
I like Smoltz. People have their different opinions. I think he's pretty. Maybe it's his tone or voice or
what it is he's knocking the current game all the time. He's doing the inside the NBA thing where it's like, well, in my day it was better, and we did this and we did that, and that just is tiresome for people.
Well, he took a beating when the Rangers were in the World Series.
Well, he
Ranger
wasn't.
fan.
He was kind of like there's some negativity there that I think probably turns people away from him. Yeah, he got panned a lot during the WBC, and it's weird, man. Like I'm in media, but I don't know if I came across Vin Scully like one time we were in LA and just happened to catch a Dodgers game and listen to Vin Scully, like I was enamored with that. Eric Nadel doing Rangers broadcasts, listening to that on the way home from work and all that. But I never like watched TV broadcasts and got super into the play-by-play aspect of it. I know you guys do, but I never did. So sometimes some of these critiques, I'm just like, oh, I didn't even notice because I'm not really paying that close attention. But it was impossible to not notice the critiques of John Smoltz throughout the WBC. And sometimes, yes, where he was being a bit negative, much like it's easy to notice with Charles and Shaq and those guys that they are very much being negative Nancy's about all things modern NBA more often than not. So anyways, Smoltz I think has got some good qualities, but probably depends on how much you're really listening to what he says. So I'm probably not getting the full meal deal like some of the people who are either positive or negative towards him. He's just kind of whatever to me. But there you go. Barry Bonds on the Netflix broadcast for MLB moving forward, doing a different thing here and there with the big three events that they're going to have, including that big Giants-Yankees game. And then I mentioned the Home Run Derby, and what else did I say? What was the third one? The Field of Dreams game as well. So
those mid-season things for me.
I liked the Williamsport game when they did it. I love the Field of Dreams game just because I love that movie so much.
But if it's like an in-season tournament,
no, don't do the in-season
I don't want
tournament.
the WBC at the All-Star break because I saw a lot of people, and I thought the same thing. It's like, okay, well then these guys just don't get a break. Mm-hmm. So you mean to tell me the guys who otherwise would have been at home for a week are now like, yep, I'm going to go over and play? Like maybe some of them would. I'm sure some of them would actually, but I also think you're going to get a bunch of guys who are like, I've played 81 games. I'm tired and beat up. I don't want to go play in Tokyo for 2 weeks or whatever setup that you've got. So I think there's some questions about that to be answered about any WBC midseason. But we'll get a taste of it in the Olympics because in 2028, that is going to be right smack in the middle of the season, and we'll see what that looks like. And maybe if it goes exceptionally well, then you We in a hurry?
No, I'm looking at that score over there for a second.
If things go exceptionally well, then we can see if that would maybe turn to something different. So there you go with that. Meanwhile, final story here, Rory McIlroy, his Masters Champions Dinner, won his first green jacket last year, and now it's his turn to put the menu together for the Masters. The Masters Club dinner, and 12 items on the menu, from appetizers to desserts, 4 labels from the Augusta National Wine Cellar. He said in a conference call on Wednesday, I think it would be pretty presumptuous to have a menu in your head before you actually win the tournament, but I always thought about if I win the Masters one day, what would I want it to look like? What would I like to serve? And so he will be hosting the dinner, and says he's looking forward to being a part of it for many years to come. He does have some Northern Irish dishes, including his mother's bacon-wrapped dates as an appetizer and a side dish. And he's going to also do some Georgia cuisine as well. So are you interested in the menu here for the Rory McIlroy dinner? The appetizers will be peach and ricotta flatbread, balsamic, hot honey, and basil, a part of that. Rock shrimp tempura with creamy spicy sauce. Bacon-wrapped dates with goat cheese and almonds, and then grilled elk sliders with caramelized onion jam and roasted garlic aioli. Those are the 4 appetizers. Peach and ricotta flatbread, bacon-wrapped dates, rock shrimp tempura, and grilled elk sliders. So fancy schmancy stuff there. First course, yellowfin tuna carpaccio, foie gras toasted baguette and chives. Main course, choice of either Wagyu filet mignon or seared salmon, plus traditional Irish champ, sautéed Brussels sprouts, glazed carrots with brown butter, and crispy Vidalia onion rings. And then for dessert, sticky toffee pudding, vanilla ice cream, and warm toffee sauce. And then they've got the listings of the 4 bottles of wine. I'll spare you that. You wine nerds can go look that up if you want to. But there you go. The Irish Northern Irish influence. I better be clear there. The Northern Irish influence, and maybe some Irish influenced. I don't know. Certainly some Georgian influenced, state of Georgian influenced parts of the meal on here as well. But that is the Masters dinner for one Rory McIlroy. I believe that's coming up on April the 7th.
By the way, I love foie gras. I didn't think I would like foie gras because it's from fatty liver of duck or goose. That's what it is. But it's pretty damn good. So
I don't know. I may have had it. I just didn't pronounce it right. Dan Rappaport, Craig, on the wine selection, looked up the cost of the bottles you mentioned. The 2015 Salon S Brut was $1,326 a bottle. The 2022 Domaine Laflave is $2,371 a bottle. The Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1990, $1,273 a bottle. And the Chateau de Yaquim, $530 a bottle from 1989 model. It's a bunch of money. It's a bunch of money. But you know what? He got close at 1 or 2 times and didn't win it. Enjoy, Rory, and also those who were going to be there.
Yeah, that's one of the more unique dinners I think I've heard there, and they have some really good ones.
What would you serve? What would be yours, Craig?
I don't know. I have no,
All right,
no
Paul,
idea.
what would
I'd have to
yours
sit
be?
and think about it.
I would be Italian themed. I mean, like I would do that. So it would be delicacies around Italian cuisine.
All right, I would want some kind of shrimp as an appetizer. I would want Wagyu, whatever, steak, bone-in, ribeye, whatever, and then ice cream, just pure ice cream as the dessert.
Hey, at my dinner, we're serving Kobe beef. All right, it's the Masters.
Yeah.
They've got the hookup.
Okay, well you can you buy it, you get some.
Oh wait, he has to buy it,
Yeah.
right? No, that's why he went Wagyu.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, not like he doesn't have any money.
Did they have a budget? Did he give him a budget?
I mean, apparently not, because that's thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Craig, anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, when we come back, Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach, was in our studio earlier today. We'll have that interview, the big finish at the end with the trivia, polls, the wheel, and Paul's top 5. And this is 365 Sports.
In Waco, we're making a declaration of deals. And these deals are so big, even fans of the Dallas Cowboys think this might finally be the year. Drive home a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for just $32,990 or a new Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 for $29,990. Take $11,000 off a new Jeep Gladiator Sport or choose 0% for 60 months. Or we pay your sales tax. Right now, no payments for 90 days. Happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Baylor football coach Dave Aranda in studio with us, 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Coach Aranda to our left. And so I want to start off with just something that how many cups of coffee have you already had today?
Well, I'll go ahead and say it. So myself, Larry McDonald, Aaron Hunt, we are on a cleanse. So this is day 2 of the cleanse. So yesterday was just water and electrolytes. And we had some guys hurting at the end of that day. And then today is water, electrolytes. We have 2 kind of cups of bone broth, which I had my bone broth early this morning, and it was just it sucked so bad. And so I kind of gave the lowdown to the other 2 of, hey, man, this is all going to suck. But it's over Saturday morning. We'll be done with it.
Well, good. Is it more to get energy to start the day or to stay focused throughout the day?
It's both. I think we both kind of needed a reset. All 3 of us needed it. I know I needed it. And so I feel good, but I still feel kind of, when you get up, right now I get up too soon, I kind of feel it. And so, yeah, and so today will be kind of getting through it is going to be a big part of today.
Well, Coach, it's good to see you. And I guess it's spring ball rolling around now, so we appreciate the visit before you guys get rolling. And I kind of asked you before of just sort of what's it like now, spring ball, the development phase, the new faces phase, the just trying to put things together phase this time of year. How do you kind of view it, and how do you sort of unravel it all, I guess?
So, yeah, in the very beginning, it was let's push spring back as far as we can. And so with so many new players, coaches, we have to be able to work on really building trust and getting to know people and going past just a fist bump and how are you? I'm good. And then walking by. It's got to be more than that. And we have to kind of fast track that. We don't have the time to build that really throughout the season. We're going to have to start the season being as close as we can, as good as we can. And so there's been a fair amount of I've had one-on-one meetings with everybody in the team. Coordinators have done that. We've had story group times where guys get together, different groups, kind of tell their story, where they're from, what's their why, how they come to Baylor, there's group outings that we do where we try to build mix and match, where it's just not a position group, but it's kind of a D-line and wide receivers together. There's some community service things we've been doing, and we try to be able to do it where it's just as intermixed as possible, just not one guy on his own, not one position group. And so that's been a huge, huge emphasis. But even more than that, you know, we could have the structured things, but it's got to be just the daily, you know, if it's a breakfast at the bank or if it's dinner at the bank, sitting down. We used to say, hey, go and take your, you can take your food to go. It was an option. And now we're sitting down and we're trying to sit with someone different. And these guys are really doing that, and they're really making progress on, you know, engage is our number one goal in spring. And so once we engage with the team, then you can own the team, you know, but it takes engaging and earning trust. So that's a huge thing. And from there, then it became with the coaches, like, hey, what's an identity? Here's what we're going to be, right? These three things. All of the stuff we're going to do is going to build towards it. Hey, when we get to spring ball is going to be building to this identity. When we get to that first game, we want spring ball, fall camp to all lead into that thing. So whatever we're saying in spring, we want to be saying, you know, in early September, and we want it to flow through. And I think it has to be that way to kind of get all the new kind of aligned and together. And so, you know, tough, smart, dependable are the things that we're working on.
We're going to discuss a lot of the development, the players, et cetera, and the camaraderie, chemistry. How big was the moment when DJ Lagway committed? Because the fan base was like waiting with bated breath, and I'm sure you guys were. But he committed, then he went on a trip, which he had committed to Ole Miss, and then eventually signs his deal. What was that like, and how critical was that specific transfer portal?
I think it was important. You know, we had vacancies at both quarterback spot and receiver spot, and it's very difficult to get the caliber of player, of kid we wanted at receiver without the quarterback, and then vice versa. And so they were both waiting for the other shoe to drop. And, you know, we kind of got around with it, and it got to the point where, hey, this is go time. We've got to be able to get a commitment here. And so, you know, the visit with DJ and his family throughout the process was always really upfront, always really honest, really heartfelt people. And they, you know, you could tell they wanted him here. The family wanted him here. You could tell DJ wanted to be here. You know, I think it was on our part and trying to build up the people around him. And I think once we finally had that commitment, then, you know, within the day, people started popping up that weren't available to us before, and we're able to kind of follow through with it.
But admittedly, now that he's signed, was there a little bit of like, uh-oh, this is kind of like, we know that he wants to be here, we think that he wants to be here, but there is this wild card of this could go sideways. Like, now that it's done and signed and sealed, delivered, was that something that you did have to kind of contend with there for at least a few days?
You know, in all of the talks with DJ and his family, it was like, hey, Dave, we're here. This is where we want to be. And so, you know, within kind of the building, it was like, hey, DJ is coming here. I know once we would maybe get on our phones, you'd see other things. But you know, it was on his trip, he's communicating with us. We had kids on a visit, and he's talking to the kids on the visit. And these are all things that he said he was going to do, you know. And so, yeah, all throughout the process, just way impressed just with the family, kind of what they want, where they're coming from. I think it really it vibes with us. I think Baylor and DJ really great fit.
I had a chance to sit down and visit with him too, and he does seem very mature. He said he's healthier than he's been in a long time because he had gotten beat up, of course. What is more important, him developing even better as a quarterback, and also his leadership? You don't walk in the door and say, I'm DJ Lagway, because that'll like offend people. Yeah. What, in your opinion, is more important for him? Is the quarterback spot?
Yeah, I think, you know, in looking at, I was able to visit with Sawyer today, so he's back in town, and he was with our trainers, and just earlier this morning. I was coming off of a class check, academic check, and Sawyer's in there, and he's talking about the teams he's visiting, and it was great to visit with him, and his excitement and everything is so cool, going up for pro day. But when I see Sawyer really led, and all of them, either way is a positive way, but Sawyer led kind of from off the field and brought it on. And so there was a kind of a coalition that he would make, and it would be off the field, and he'd bring it onto the field, where I think DJ's the other way. DJ's going to lead on the field, through ball, and through kind of getting on guys and everything else, and then his work is off the field, kind of engaging and connecting, which he's doing. There's a group of guys that spring break went to Miami, and I'm sure Miami was fun for them, but they're up at 5 a.m. running, and DJ was the guy that was making them get up. All the receiver group went with him, and our tight ends are up there too. And so, he's a hard charger, hard driver, and on the football field is very. You're not going to miss him. You'll see him for sure, but you'll hear him too.
Just another example of I'm trying to think of the timeline, because you had previously recruited him, right? Mm-hmm. And then he decides to sign with Florida. So it just goes to show you, and I think it's said by coaches all the time, but in this era, as crazy as it is, relationships are so important, because you are very likely to see a guy on the boomerang coming back around in the portal at some point or another.
It's very true. Yeah, I think if there's guys that we know that we're not in the money range for them, we are still hard charging recruiting them, and it's more time invested, because you still got to get the guys that are within your range money wise. But that's the reason for it, is that hey, when if stuff comes around, especially just being in the state, if a lot of their prospects are out of state, you're counting from when they come back in that you're an option for them.
Where are you with your NIL budget for this team that you put together, with still more things that can happen compared to last year? Did people step up to help?
Doug, Javon, our administration is really hard charging to try to get that done. I think, it's just such a short window from when, he's hired, Doug's hired, to when, the transfer portal was. If it was a later window, we'd probably have more money in the bank. And so he is full intention of trying to get that done. I think we are probably still similar to where we were last year. And I think, last year, so I think there's the $20 million that every school gets, and then based upon kind of how it's divvied up, that's the money, the revenue share money has been football's money the last couple of years. And I think there's about 3 or 4 other schools that are in our league that are in a similar deal. And so wherever that's going to fall down on the league, that's going to be a little bit lower than maybe some other teams that are, 5, 10, 15 over the cap. We've been right at the cap. Now, this past year, when there was the opportunity to come back, and it's like, here's all the things that we have to fix. Here's all the things that we have to change. And, a lot of it was in recruiting was we would recruit high school players, and we would be competitive and try to get really the most talented guys we could get. And, money's involved with that. And so, if it's initially 4 and then someone else pays 5 and then it eventually gets to 6, then that's what it is. And you have all this money now that's on the sideline. And that was a big mistake by me. And what I didn't want to admit was, hey, we're bringing in guys for just 1 year and then they're going. It's a 1-year thing. They're coming in for one year and then they're out. But if you are at revenue share money, then I think that's what it is.
Do you meet with the donors? I know Doug and Javon and all that, but if you met with a donor and they said, I don't want to do it because he's not going to be here next year.
Right.
Like Troy Aikman, even at UCLA and others, other examples, what do you say to him or her, the donor?
Yeah, I would say that we've got guys all throughout the program. I would try to get that donor to come and see. Mm-hmm. I think if he were to see it, it'd be better than me saying it. But we've got guys that love Baylor and are doing everything in their power to get over the hump and win. football games, and they represent Baylor, and they're at Baylor for the right reasons. I just think money helps in the way this game is now, and I think from us moving on a lot of the players, which I had never done, it had always been retention. We were able to get millions of dollars and then put it on top of this year's revenue share. So this team we've spent more on this team than we have before, but really you're making $1 out of 15 cents where you'd like to have $3,
What's it been like did you know Doug McNamee prior? Had you met before? And what's that process of just getting to know a new athletic director been like? Obviously, wish things could have probably gone differently, but this is life, right?
Yeah, well, I'm way impressed with him. Very smart, thoughtful, knows what he wants, will say what he feels and believes. And so communication's pretty clear, but will listen too. He'll listen. And, thoughtful leader like that has been really good. We've had a few staff meetings where there's other coaches in there, and just that interaction's just been way impressive. So I'm excited that a guy like Doug is working with us, for us, on the same team, because just his demeanor and the way he goes about it is a guy that's a winner.
During that time, when Mac is out, Dr. Livingstone releases this statement, and I remember seeing you, I think it might have been the next week, it may be National Signing Day or whatever, and about whether you ever had many conversations with her. And I don't think you did. I don't know, I may be wrong. Right. How awkward was that?
No, I mean, if you're a coach, you want to coach your team. You want to win. You want to find a way to right the ship. You want to, just today, we have walkthroughs today, and we have football school today. So I walk through the halls, and I check in with the different assistants or the recruiting people or our support staff. And, as you walk through those halls, like in the front of the doors, we have people put their family picture up there. And so it'll be, so-and-so with his wife and their kids and everything else. And so anytime that I'm doing that, I'm kind of checking in like that, I'm seeing them. And it's like, for them, right? We got to get this right for them. Like all those pictures that you see. And then, I just think, like, I know just being a baseball fan and just going through when your team's winning and when your team's losing, like, you don't want to be a part of anything losing. And I just know, like, the Baylor fans have been Baylor fans way before I've been here, and they'll be fans after I'm here. And, like, I owe them a better product. And we got a bunch of people that are in the facility that are all about it. And so just the vibe inside the building is really strong and really good. And so we got to get that to where that is producing on the field, and that's what we're aiming to do.
What are conversations with Joe Kleinerman like? Just kind of what's the sort of back and forth? How much do you enjoy maybe being able to just throw defense off of another guy and kind of learn from one another? And just how would you describe how all that's coming together on that side of the ball?
He's really smart, and he's got great people skills, and those are two things that a lot of times don't go together. Is usually one is at the mercy of the other, but he has both of them. His defense is a lot of zone coverages in the back end. I think one of the biggest difference is, there's like true zone coverage where I'm going to drop to a spot, I'm going to see the quarterback. There's true man coverage where my eyes are on my guy, I'm going to cover this guy wherever he goes. What Baylor's played in the past has been kind of a mix of those, like match coverage, where based upon a release, was that at 3 yards, was that at 5 yards, all of it changes, and my eyes go here and there, right? He doesn't really play a lot of that, which there could be some complexity in that. He plays true zone, and he plays true man. And that makes a lot of sense, and that simplifies things in the back end. I think in the front end, a lot of movement, a lot of gap charges, a lot of ways that guys can get one-on-ones. So way more movement than maybe there have been in the past. So I'm excited for that.
When you arrived, you had a full-time basic defensive coordinator. Then it was Powledge eventually, but you still are the brains. Who has that? Everyone thinks of you, what you did defensively when you've been around. How hard is it to give that up with now knowing this program needs to win immediately?
No, yeah, not very hard. I think it's hard to be involved in it and for it not to work. That's hard, you know. But to give it up, whatever it takes to win, is what we're looking to do.
Is it possible to be highly successful as a head coach and a coordinator in college football these days? I mean, I'm sure there's examples of where that's the case, but you see a lot of guys like giving up play calling duties that have been calling to play. Some guys still hold on to it, but there's just so much complexity now compared to 5-10 years ago.
That's true. It's way different. I think the game has evolved multiple times from what it used to be. But I don't know. I think you still can. I think my style of all of that was kind of let's generate ideas, let's have different guys take ownership, and I think if a guy was doing it, both a head coach and a coordinator, and he had just real hands-on, real kind of probably ego out in front, and no, this is what we're doing, and we're doing it this way, and I'm not even entertaining any of it. I think, whereas I don't know if that's necessarily a healthy way, but I think that would probably be the way to get it done, because I think the complexity and the nuance and everything goes up when you're asking for opinions and you're trying to meld or mold. Here's where someone was, and now he's here with us, and we're going to try to make this work. That probably wasn't the best way to do it.
There have been coaches who have been like the demeanor, like a Tom Landry. Yeah. I know that's many years ago, or even Tony Dungy, one of your friends, and Lovie Smith. They're very quiet. Yeah. Not that there's not a fire burning inside of them, and you. Yeah. And we've talked about this before. Yeah. And sometimes people, when you win, it's, man, he's so cerebral and he's in control. And then you don't, and it's like he doesn't care. Yeah. You're the same guy that I believe in a practice one time as a fullback cracked your helmet going in a drill. Yeah. And you have that fire. Do you feel like sometimes that's still misunderstood, that you have it and people don't understand it?
Yeah. I think it's, the first time ever really to be criticized for not having it was kind of like a whoa, and you almost kind of retreat, and it's like you put up a wall, and I feel like I've done that, and I shouldn't have done that. That's, if this were all to end tomorrow for me, my biggest regret would be not just, getting past maybe you've taken it a certain way and getting past that. But I retreated some, when it's like you're trying to be, I don't know, you try and be yourself, and then there's all these these daggers and arrows and shotgun blasts
Shrapnel.
are coming at you, man. So and so I never really went through that before, and so kind of retreating, trying to find somewhere safe to be, which probably makes it even more awkward. And I think that was a big mistake, and I'm trying not to do that here with the opportunity that we got. But all that's hard to do. That's something they in all the preparation for this seat. That preparation doesn't justify kind of what can come on the other end of losing and not being successful.
I was just sitting there thinking, like, this has got to be so difficult. I mean, I know people don't want to hear that because they're like, oh, you get paid a lot of money and you're high profile and all this, but like, you're trying to learn, you're trying to evolve, you're also trying to help others do that. Meanwhile, you are getting poked at every single angle when things aren't going. It's just, it seems like it's a lot. And I know, like, just from a human perspective, like, it's just, it's got to be really difficult to try to always kind of be changing course, but I don't know, getting out of your comfort zone is just, it's probably a lot more complicated than people think, of just like turn it on and do it this type of way, right?
Yeah, I think the the big challenge for me in this is that, man, we need to win, and we're going to win. I really believe the closer we get as a team, we're going to win. And we have good talent. Our O-line and D-line, I really feel like we've addressed deficiencies there, and we've got really good players, and I'm excited about what we can do in the line of scrimmage play. But, you know, I just think, like, I don't, you know, the game has changed so much, and so, like, beliefs that you come into with the game,
Baylor football coach.
to the staff or the team. Yesterday we had a team meeting about class integrity and academic excellence, and kind of went through like what I feel like what class means and what integrity means, and then academic excellence. And it's, you know, I've had those goals, values since way before and coming here. And one of the things we brought up there would be like, what is really the point in winning football games with class, integrity, and academic excellence, you know? But it's like you choose those because these are the right things to do, because the person you become when you're through with all of this, right? It matters, you know? But it's like, I think you really have to speak into that, and you have to continually hit that, because kind of what's coming on their phones and whatever else is the opposite of that. You know, it's the opposite. And so I just think the media part for me, where I've struggled, is to just, you know, kind of what I'm doing right now. I just think if I'm up here kind of being all philosophical and all this other thing, I just think, you know, between all the philosophical stuff, we need some wins. So we need to probably stop with some of this stuff and get more wins on the table. And so I just think if I'm not careful, I'll just do this too much.
It's amazing how that just is like the answer to everything, though, in this space, though. It's like you could be the quietest person or the loudest person, so long as you win. It's like it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of crazy. You guys have Pro Day coming up on Sunday. You mentioned Sawyer's back on campus. Guys like Josh Cameron. Just what's it like to see them get this opportunity? I know Josh, unfortunately, didn't get to go full bore at the Combine, but just kind of what do you think about when you think of that group now, and how excited are you to see where their journeys take them now moving forward?
Yeah, way proud. Jackie Marshall, I saw him today too, and so a lot of these guys have like 5, 6 school or teams that they're talking to, and you know, I think a couple of them have done 2 or 3 interviews with certain teams, and so yeah, they're doing it. You know, it's just so cool from the beginning with a lot of them, where there wasn't even a sniff or a glance of any of this, to where it is now. And so my talks with them are like, man, you think about what got you here and how hard you worked, and you know, it's going to take that where you're going. You're going to have probably, when you get, you know, it's going to be fun to sign, and once you do, you probably have to go down before you go back up. So that work ethic, right? That kind of underdog, that's you. And I know, let's own it, and let's show what you can do. And you got everyone in this place backing you up, and so that's cool to see, though. I'm so fired up. You know, Michael Trigg hasn't been back in a while, so excited to see Mike. And so we've got some all the guys. They've been kind of throughout this week. You can see them around, and so it's good to see them. We still have their lockers up, so they can come up and use our space.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned philosophical, and that's who you are, but it was okay when you were 12-2.
Yeah.
Or even 8-4, but it's in between that. People go, remember you were the Jedi, and you know, all of those things. People loved it. They were writing stories about it. And then, like you mentioned, in the end, at 9-3, 8-4, 12-2, whatever it is. When you had the 12-2 season, you once told me that you didn't, I don't think you said regretted, but you wanted the next level to be the next guys. Like Petrie's gone, and Bernard's gone, and all them. And you wanted the younger players to be like weed or grass in the spring. But it's not like that anymore. You still have those, but you can't really do that as much, can you?
No. Yeah, you can't. I don't, you know, I'm always uncomfortable talking about money, and I really haven't up until this time. And I don't know, I probably should have. I probably should have talked a lot more about it. You know, I don't know.
To who?
Everybody. Everybody.
Donors.
Everybody.
Baylor.
Everybody. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is like I don't necessarily like the way it is, but it is the way it is, And so, so 2 years ago, 300 was 300. This year, that 300 was like 600 or 700,000. So if it continues to go that way, then you're going to have a new Baylor team every year because you're not going to be able to afford to pay guys to keep guys. You're not going to be able to afford to kind of give guys raises, so to speak. You're not going to be able to do that. You have to it's a one and done because that's the money that you have.
Yeah, it's. I think everybody from fans to coaches to players are all kind of in that same vein of like, we don't necessarily love what's going on, but we still love the heart of it, and we're hoping that it returns to that or remains somewhere in there. But I think we all kind of feel some sense of that, just probably on different levels. There's some changes in the league. Like I think we'd probably typically talk to you at some point in spring, but Morgan Scalley's now the head coach at Utah. Eric Morris takes over at Oklahoma State. Colin Klein at Kansas State. Do you know those guys, or just any kind of crossover thoughts on some new faces now in the Big 12? And guys like Chris Kleiman now deciding to go off and do something different.
Yeah, I've been talking with Coach Kleiman. He has been a good friend to me, and so I enjoy the talks that we have. But with Morgan and just it's a good group of and Eric. I've known Eric for a long time. Just really smart, high class guys are going to represent the league really well, and are really going to push their teams. I mean, some of the things that we're talking about in terms of like the new age and and how to go for it and what to do and we need to talk about money and make it, and they're going to do that. And so from wherever that team was, they're going to work to push the envelope with it. And so it's going to be good for the league.
So you know what's on the table, right?
Yeah.
Wins and losses, right?
Right.
Well, wins, you hope. And
Right.
you went to Italy. Your daughter's studying abroad.
Yes.
Had you ever been to Europe before, and what was that like?
No, one of my takeaways was so we were in Rome and then we were in Florence, and they have, I guess, two takeaways. One is a lot of the dinners start at 8 o'clock, and they give you. This is one of the reasons for the cleanse. So they give you the appetizers you can choose, and then you can choose like a pasta meal. That's like your pre-dinner, and then they give you like a steak or chicken. That's your other dinner, and then there's a dessert thing that comes, and it's like you're there from 8 till like 11 o'clock for dinner. And that was it was cool to see my daughter because she is a little lady and kind of doing her thing and confidence and all that, But my biggest takeaway though was we went through the Vatican, and there's a couple stores where you can buy stuff that are off to the side of the Vatican, like the gift shop, I guess. And they had a little Pope mobile. So like a John Paul II, right, the Pope mobile. And so that though reminded me, that is a little bit where we're trying to, that glass. We've got guys, I think, right now, and because they're new, coaches and everything else, where they're walking around that little protective glass. Mm-hmm. And so we have to break that glass. And then we got to get close, and we got to get where we're honest and open. And if ball just kind of takes over, that protective glass will stay there, and then it's going to get shattered during the season, and we're not going to want to see those results. And so this team has got talent. This team can win. We have to get close, and we got to get to where we trust each other. And so there's not a players and a coaches. There's not this or that. There's just one team.
How about you looking forward to just rolling the ball out there and just coaching?
Yeah, excited. Yeah, it's like I say, we've pushed it way back, and so you look at like the receivers are out there throwing all the time. You've got like our interior people are out there hitting sleds on their own, and so we got guys that are out there working and they're investing, and so to get it all together would be nice to see.
My last question, and thanks for your time. What would you say to a Baylor fan that wanted a change?
Yeah. I know what it's like to be a fan, and I know what it's like to win. And, if we could get that fan to come spend a day with us and see the energy of our team and the quality of people of our team and how they're working, we're doing everything we can to get it right for that fan.
You said you're more talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was something that people could see that was obviously, with all due respect to the young men. Dave, thank you very much. It's great to see you again. We'll see you at spring practice and then, of course, the pro day, etc. Dave Aranda with Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, 365 Sports.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by flagandanthem.com. We are talking open coaching jobs. But before we do that, go to flagandanthem.com, use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. Let's talk open coaching jobs. Number 5, Providence, Kim English, out. He is a good young coach. I think that this is just a blip on the radar for him. He's 37 years old. He will find his way. But Providence, you're talking about a Big East school here. You're talking about a Big East job. Those are premium jobs. It's basketball-only NIL money. You can do things if you have the right things in place at a Big East basketball-only job like Providence. I think this is a really good job that's open, and I would not be surprised to see a lot of competition for it among the coaches who are looking to move up in the ranks. Number 4, Butler. Thad Matta abruptly retired, and there was some question about whether he'd be fired, come back. But he retired. He's out at Butler, and they are moving on looking for a new coach. This is the place where Hoosiers was shot, at Butler. Basketball is in its DNA. They have gotten all the way to the title game in the last 15 years. They are an absolute basketball junkie town when it comes to hoops. So any coach would want to be involved in that job because you know that you're going to have fan base support, you know you're going to have enthusiasm, and you're in a basketball crazy state like Indiana. Number 3, Georgia Tech. Damon Stoudemire out. I actually thought that job would work out really well for him. I thought it was a really good match, but not everything does. Georgia Tech, really good basketball job because A, it's in Atlanta. B, the school is fantastic, so you have a lot of great educational opportunities. Also, because it's in Atlanta, I think there are more NIL opportunities for the basketball team that have not been completely realized yet. So, Georgia Tech, my number 3 job, and I think, especially given their basketball history, I was just watching something this morning about Kenny Anderson, broke out in the Final Four. Fantastic basketball history at Georgia Tech. You could really do something there if you wanted to. Number 2, Cincinnati, Wes Miller, I thought had cleared the bar until the Big 12 tournament, and then he got run out. This is a great job because it's a Big 12 job, because it's also a school that has a good basketball history. I'm sure they even thought about bringing Bob Huggins back, but an interesting young coach taking that job, someone who's on the up, who's on the rise, that would be absolutely great. And Cincinnati can win a ton of games and go really far because they've got a lot of good institutional support and alumni support when it comes for basketball. Number 1, Syracuse. This would have been Kansas State had that job not already been filled by Casey Alexander, but Adrian Autry is out. The rumors are going to circulate around Siena coach Jerry McNamara because he is a Syracuse legend. My only advice to Syracuse would be, I know he still lives there in town, but don't let Jim Boeheim anywhere near this decision. And in spite of my personal opinion about Jim Boeheim and how caustic he can be, I don't think that it's good to let your old coach determine the new path. Eventually, he's not going to be there. You have to cut the path for your university. And Syracuse, inside what was formerly the Carrier Dome and is now Corporate Sponsor Dome, is a great basketball superpower if it wants to be. Look, Jim Boeheim won a title regularly in the tournament. It has great resources, great basketball history. If I was a coach out there right now and ranking the jobs I would want that are open, Syracuse would be my number 1 because of the potential that it has in a very, very, very good and deep basketball conference like the ACC, which is mostly true year in and year out. So my number 1 job is Syracuse. Now, let's spin that wheel. Which has the better atmosphere, a high-profile college rivalry game or a high-profile pro sports rivalry game? I think it's a college rivalry game.
There's no question.
There's no There's no question about this. Craig, are you with me there on that one? It's just there's so much more deep-seated passion in that.
Yeah, I think it's without question it's the college rivalry. Yeah, I don't think there's any much of a question about that. And maybe international soccer matchups or things is what you would compare to a college rivalry. But pros, there's some good atmospheres. Don't get it twisted. It's just not to the level of the personal nature that college seems to have attached to it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, watching Alabama, Auburn, or any kind of SEC or Big 12 rivalry or not, cross-country compared to the atmosphere, yeah, you get some NFL that it's unbelievable. There's just something still amazing about the atmosphere of a great rivalry game in college football. All right, to the quizzes. On March the 19th of 1995, Michael Jordan returned to the NBA, 17-month retirement. Which jersey number did he famously wear in his first game back against the Indiana Pacers?
He wore 45, and he wore 45 for a few weeks, and then he changed it back.
Yeah, 45, of course, was the number with the White Sox, his baseball jersey.
Yep.
Yeah, unless this is a trick question, it's 45.
Yep. Remember it well.
The answer? There it is.
Yes.
45.
Yeah, because this iconic number 23 had been retired by the Bulls, and he wanted a fresh start after his father's passing. It was his high school number and what he wore during his baseball stint. He only wore it for 22 games before switching back to 23, later joking that 45 isn't 23 after a playoff loss to the Magic.
Yeah, that was it. And I still wonder about the retirement, or was that something that he just needed to leave the NBA for a little bit? There was a lot of speculation around that.
Yeah, about his gambling or whatever.
Yeah.
But, okay, next trivia question. Which Texas university is known as the cradle of professional wrestling for producing 8 WWE Hall of Famers who all played on its football team? Craig,
West Texas State.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be there. But
Which is now West Texas, what, A&M?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, Dusty Rose, Stan Hansen, Terry Funk, Tully Blanchard, Tito Santana, yeah, all those guys. Located in Canyon, Texas, the school became a legendary breeding ground for wrestling talent in the 60s and 70s. The Funk family recruited tough football players like Terry Funk, Stan Hansen, Tully Blanchard, Tito Santana directly from the gridiron into the ring. Other icons like Bruiser Brody and Blackjack Mulligan also suited up for the Buffaloes before becoming world-renowned stars. Yeah, I think Dusty Rhodes was a part of that as well, if I'm remembering correctly. And there were various others. But yeah, great question, Andrew. I enjoy the pro wrestling trivia, but yeah, I knew that one right away.
If we want to just keep winning, just keep feeding us those questions on the WWE and wrestling in particular. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Now, the poll questions. One of these, the chat room was saying they didn't, I don't know, which modern era juggernaut wins the ultimate Final Four? I didn't think this was anything wrong with this question. I said 2012 Kentucky, saw them up close and personal in Atlanta. But they win it, split it with Duke in 2001 Duke.
Nobody likes 2009 UNC. I voted for Kentucky. I mean, of course, like we said, we were biased because we got to see that team beat a really good Baylor team like a drum.
Yep.
In a packed Georgia Dome, an absolutely packed Georgia Dome. So many people we couldn't even see Ashley Judd. That was how many people.
Oh, we saw
at
her.
the game. But yeah, there were a lot. I remember walking out after the game when Baylor lost, and we were trying to find our Uber or our taxi cab or whatever we'd ordered to get back to the hotel. And he couldn't get closer than like 18 blocks away. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And
yeah.
I did not see anybody but Kentucky fans. Like even in the neighborhood we were walking through, it was just Kentucky fans.
No,
all
there's
over
a
the
bunch.
place.
Yeah, they were there, locked, loaded, and ready, and they had a reason to be.
Yeah.
One,
like
it's Kentucky, but they also had a fantastic team.
Yeah, there were people walking their dogs wearing Kentucky stuff. Okay, other poll question. What's your favorite season, spring, summer, fall, or winter? Not surprising that on our channel, 56% chose fall because that's when football is.
Yeah, I think that probably plays a big role. I'd say just take sports away. Give me springtime for sure. I'm more of a warm weather guy. But yeah, the fall I can understand. If you want to count all the events that go with that, then yeah, I'd probably pick the fall because it's still relatively warm here during that time, and it's got college football and pro football. So yeah, I can see why that was the big winner. Summer around here sucks. Winter, who the hell knows any year to year. Maybe it's an ice storm that knocks out the power everywhere. Maybe it's 97 degrees. It's just really anybody's guess what winter looks like in the state of Texas every year.
I love the spring because it's kind of like the start of the new year for me, not the winter. And the time change, and then, of course, that means I get to go play a lot more golf. I just love it. But and summer, yeah, it can be brutal. The fall, though, with that crisp summer to fall, that first cool.
If we actually had fall here, legitimately,
I was gonna say, man, like September rolls around, October rolls around, and we're in November. It's like 87 degrees outside. It's like, yeah, fall starts in like late November and lasts for a month and a half, if that, and it turns into winter after like 2 weeks, and it's just ice storms or something.
I was watching a documentary the other day, and it took place in like upstate New York, and they were shooting like the people like walking down like a walking path in. It was autumn, and like the leaves were there, and they had like light jackets on, and it looked so lovely and wonderful. And then Amanda's like, she just says, it's just not like that here.
No. The Washington, D.C. and Tokyo, Japan were the two places where you had all four seasons.
Yeah.
You really did. You had a fall, you had a winter, you had a spring and a summer. All right. We have one more T-shirt, Craig, that we sold. Robert Beekler, otherwise known as Bobby B., bought a Smoky Says Relax. And if anyone, like I say relax, I need to say that to myself most likely.
That's
more
all I was
often
going to
than
say.
not.
I was going to say, it's the ultimate, I don't think people understand this, it's the ultimate irony in the world that we're selling a shirt that the least relaxed human being I have literally ever met in my life has a shirt that says Smokey Says Relax.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're the least relaxed human being
I'm the one that
ever met in my life.
I brought it up without you having to validate it or Craig.
Yeah,
but you're right. I am. I can be high strung. Thank you, Bobby B, for buying the Smokey Says Relax. You can find that on in our merchandise link. We need to get that up the next time we put up a picture so you can go get one yourself.
So the lesson here is, if you are so tense, David Allen Smoak is telling you to relax.
That's a bad deal.
That's a bad deal.
All right. Michigan State blows out North Dakota State. Arkansas wins by 19 against Hawaii. Duke came back to beat Siena. Nebraska wins against Troy. High Point beat Wisconsin by 1. Vanderbilt by 10 over McNeese State. Louisville by 4. They beat USF, and TCU started the day with a 2-point win against the Ohio State University. All right. Thank you to Rez. Thanks to Logan Begessi. He's here today. Thanks as well to Andrew Valade, Garrett Ross, and our sponsors for those who are the ones who support us. And, of course, that means you, the viewers, as well. TFNB, your Bank for Life Studios, for Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. We'll see you tomorrow at 3, This is 365 Sports.